Chapter 1727. The appearance of the pure mystic body indicated that Han Fei could now refine his body again. Han Fei didn't have much now, but he had a lot of ultra-quality spiritual stones. With such a huge amount of ultra-quality spiritual stones, it was only a matter of time before he reached the limit of the demi-king level. As soon as Han Fei entered the Snow God's temple, no one could find him at all, not even Ice Snow Chu Ling. In Forge the Universe, exactly 2 months had passed, and Han Fei's nose was almost bleeding from his cultivation. Han Fei thought that the spiritual energy contained in the ultra-quality spiritual stones was pure enough. However, after he practiced the pure mystic body, he found that the proportion of the pure energy needed by the pure mystic body in an ultra-quality spiritual stone was only about 1%. Han Fei was exasperated. With the same 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, he should have been able to absorb 10 billion points of spiritual energy, but now, he couldn't. However, in fact, he could only absorb 100 million pieces of pure and flawless spiritual energy. As for the remaining 9 billion, Han Fei had no choice but to use it to expand Forge the Universe. This expansion took a full 2 months, and the space in Forge the Universe was expanded to a radius of 270 kilometers. And, as Han Fei continued to cultivate, this expansion would continue. Fortunately, what moved Han Fei was that the Ice Snow Lotus was indeed a mid-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure. In just 2 months, coupled with the cleansing of the purest spiritual energy, Han Fei achieved twice the result with half the effort in his cultivation. On this day Han Fei was continuing to cultivate. Suddenly, he felt that his body was extremely thirsty for energy. In Han Fei's eyes, he subconsciously saw a mass of chaos. In addition, Han Fei felt that his 5 senses and 6 senses, his lifespan and his life potential. Suddenly there were earth-shaking changes. Who? This feeling lasted for a full 2 minutes. Han Fei couldn't help looking at his information. Owner Han Fei level greater than 89, peak level venerable, C 10,000 family tree 3460564 chaotic gas 1, 273 spiritual power, 209681 perception range greater than 120,000 kilometers, strength greater than 23,906 waves. First spiritual heritage unknown, second spiritual heritage unknown, first spiritual beast twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish level 78, second spiritual beast, King Sparrow level 75, main art, void arrival level 7 of void fishing, king level, divine quality. The first thing Han Fei noticed was that his realm had dropped. Yes, he had forcefully dropped from the half-monarch realm to the peak martial highness realm. What Han Fei had been worried about finally happened. The bloodline devouring art was extremely powerful, but he still fell from a half-martial king to a peak venerable. In any case, Han Fei had a grudge against him. Once his realm dropped, it meant that he had to break through again. Back then, in order to break through to the half-monarch realm, he risked his life to cultivate the undying tyrant body. But now, after devouring 3 bloodlines in a row, his cultivation level had actually dropped. The only thing that made Han Fei feel lucky was that his comprehensive strength hadn't weakened. First of all, the 10,000 vast ocean tribe list had increased by more than 600,000 places. In front of such a huge number, 600,000 might not be a lot, but this was one race after another. In such a short time, he had actually increased the level of his bloodline by more than 1.6 million places. How incredible was that? Besides, Han Fei knew very well that as long as he could keep devouring stronger bloodlines, this inhuman bloodline would continue to grow. After increasing by more than 1.6 million places, Han Fei's realm finally dropped. In fact, Han Fei was already strong enough. This meant that Han Fei's potential was higher than before, from the peak-level venerable to the half-monarch realm. Then he looked at other information. The improvement of spiritual power should have been brought by killing 3 half-monarchs, peak-level venerables, and advanced venerables in a row. After all, the improvement of bloodline could only greatly improve one's potential, and it couldn't directly affect one's soul power and strength. However, the improvement of bloodline power seemed to be able to affect Han Fei's perception range. Although his realm had dropped, Han Fei's perception range had increased by as much as 20,000 kilometers. At this point, Han Fei's perception range might have reached the level of the Pioneer Sea state. And in terms of strength, Han Fei had increased by about 2,200 wave. Among them, only a small part should be brought about by the improvement of bloodline, and most of it was because of his cultivation of the pure mystic body. Cultivating the pure mystic body, as the name suggested, was to build a flawless body. Even if his golden body, from the perspective of the pure mystic body, couldn't be completely golden inside and outside of his bones, it wouldn't be a complete golden body. And Han Fei's bone marrow was about to become golden marrow. This was a big drawback in the eyes of the pure mystic body. In the past 2 months, Han Fei had digested most of the power released by the old turtle just by guiding spiritual energy to cleanse his body. However, he hadn't even completed the first step of cleansing his body yet. Ho! At this moment, Han Fei hesitated. Should I continue to devour bloodlines? If I continue to devour, I can only devour king bloodlines. If I devour again, I might be able to devour the advanced venerable realm. In fact, the improvement of bloodline level could be done at any realm. Even if he transcended the tribulation and became a king, he could continue to improve it. And the gap in combat power between a king and a non-king was too big. Although he could devour all the way in the venerable realm, when facing a king, he could barely fight a king for a few seconds. After all, he was not a real opponent of a king. Because of this problem, Han Fei was a little hesitant. In the end, Han Fei decided to devour again. After all, he still had to stay in the Snow God's temple for half a year. If he cultivated and forged the universe for the whole time, it would be 8 years. During these 8 years, he could devour bloodlines while cultivating. In just 2 months, his strength had increased by more than 2,000 wave. Then, after 8 years, Han Fei couldn't judge how strong he could become with the pure mystic body. Han Fei glanced at it, and information appeared. Thousands of races in the sea. 296202223 owner. 5065890 nearby bloodlines. Ancient essence shellfish, king crab, ancient azure dragon, golden crow divine blood, time dragon carp, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish. Recommended bloodlines. Ancient essence shellfish, king crab. As soon as he saw this recommended bloodline, Han Fei knew that these were the only 2 bloodlines he could devour now. If he guessed right, these 2 should be at the same level, both at the king realm. However, the king crab's talent was obviously stronger than that of the white armor emperor. Therefore, Han Fei directly chose the bloodline of the king crab to devour. After a moment, when a phantom of a little crab appeared in Han Fei's dantian, the number 4,521 days appeared in the information. Han Fei had a strange look on his face. Sure enough, his prediction was right. Every time he swallowed, the time he needed would be longer and longer. He had originally thought that 8 years should be enough for him to complete this bloodline devouring, right? But now it seemed that 8 years was not enough. It would take more than 12 years to devour and absorb the bloodline of the king crab. Han Fei smiled bitterly. After this deduction, even if he was given the opportunity to devour more advanced bloodlines, he would choose to give them up. Compared with the current bloodline improvement, he was more eager to become a king. The improvement of bloodline was only an improvement of life level and potential. No matter how strong the potential was, it was still potential and couldn't be directly transformed into combat power. But becoming a king was different. How many times stronger would his strength be? At that time, it could be said that he would be able to kill gods and Buddhas that stood in his way. but now that Han Fei had devoured, he could only work hard to cultivate and become a half-king as soon as possible. In this way, he wouldn't drop a realm again after the next bloodline devouring. At this point, Han Fei thought that his life of hard cultivation had begun. However, just as Han Fei began to absorb spiritual energy and continue to wash his body, only 3 days passed in Forge the Universe, and the old turtle spoke. The old turtle said, "Why don't you stop cultivating for a while? There seems to be a lot of people making trouble outside your house." Han Fei recovered from his cultivation, only to feel that this pure mystic body was 2F** King awesome. With the help of the Ice Lotus, in just 3 days, with his current life level, he had actually improved the power of 100 waves. If this continued, it would only be a matter of time before he returned to the Half-King realm. Han Fei said impatiently, "Someone is making trouble outside my house? Are you kidding? I'm in the Snow God's temple." The old turtle said, "It's the Snow God's temple. Although you are not affected, these people are clamoring outside every day, which will inevitably make people doubt your identity as the holy child of the Snow God's temple." Han Fei frowned. "Then let's wait and see." Swish! Han Fei appeared in this desolate palace. The Snow God's temple, as the name suggested, was snowing all year round. Everyone was wearing snow-white cloaks, which looked like a mink. Han Fei lived in a courtyard that only those close to the snow girls could stay in, and there was a powerful restriction. The courtyard was like a normal courtyard. Except for the snow-white everywhere, the biggest difference from the style of the central holy city of Enyang Heaven was that there were many snow-pattern decorations here. And there was a lot of voices in Han Fei's ears. Someone shouted, "Holy Child Shuizhan, come out! Shuizhan, Holy Girl Chu Ling, let's fight for it. If you don't come out, I will block the door every day. Shuizhan, I admit that you are the Holy Child. However, you have to convince us of your strength. Come out and fight." "Come out and fight." Bingxue Chu Ling came. Countless people outside bowed to her. "Nice to meet you, Holy Girl Chu Ling." Bingxue Chu Ling was slightly angry. "I told you that Shuizhan has just returned and is in seclusion. What do you mean by knocking on the door every day?" Someone said, "Nothing. None of us knows this Shuizhan. We believe in the appointment of the Snow Girls, but we have to be convinced." Someone said, "I am also a peak-level venerable. I want to ask Lord Shuizhan to come out and fight." Han Fei shook his head slightly. "These people. It seems that my identity is too cheap. I have to control the situation." Han Fei reached out to grab an ice mask and covered his face. Outside, dozens of experts at least in the advanced venerable realm were challenging him. Everyone was paying attention to this place. Someone sighed. "It's been a few days. Will our holy child continue to avoid battle?" Someone shook his head. "That's not right. How can we be convinced if he keeps avoiding the fight?" All of a sudden, a silhouette quietly appeared and stood on the high wall. "You are really annoying. Since you want to be defeated, then come at me together." Third update. Please vote for me. End of this chapter. Chapter 1728. When Han Fei appeared, the audience fell silent. Han Fei was mysterious in everyone's eyes, not to mention he was wearing a mask. Bingxue Chuling felt her head swelling. She thought to herself, "You are the 9th immortal master. Was he really going to come out and fight?" In an instant the scene exploded. There were dozens of peak stage venerables here. How could they tolerate Han Fei's nonsense? Someone said with an ugly expression, "The Holy Child, who is on the same level as the Virgin Spirit Saintess, wears a mask all the time. What, are you afraid to show it to others? I heard that Lord Holy Child's strength is unparalleled, but for you to ask us to fight him together. Aren't you looking down on us too much?" Someone chimed in, "That's right. Even though we're not as strong as Chu Ling Saintess, we're still well known in the Snow God Palace. How can we be looked down upon by the Holy Child?" Someone shouted in a low voice, "I'm Fan Biao, a peak venerable. Please give me some pointers, Lord Holy Child. Bingxue Chuling sighed in her heart. She hoped that nothing bad would happen. After all, the dignity of a king was not to be violated. With his hands behind his back, Han Fei chuckled indifferently. In that case, bring it on. Today, let's finish this in one go so that you don't have to bother me again. In the distance, a half-king snorted. Arrogant to the extreme. How can such a person become a holy child? A passerby said indifferently, this shouldn't be the only holy child that has been handpicked by the Snow Lady. Let's continue watching. At the peak level of the Venerable Realm, few people in the entire Snow God's temple could fight him head-on. Apart from the half-kings, there were only about 30 peak-stage venerables, and almost all of them were here today. In front of Han Fei, the void was torn apart out of thin air, and no one saw Han Fei move at all. Everyone was slightly surprised that he tore the void so easily. Before he went in, Han Fei said indifferently, "Whoever wants to come, come. Finish early, I'm very busy." Everyone was annoyed by Han Fei's contemptuous and arrogant attitude. They were all at the peak of the Venerable Realm. Those who didn't know better would think that he was a king. Go. I want to meet him. Humph. I want to see just how powerful he is. Let's go together. I want to see what kind of person she is. Swoosh, 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 one after another, peak supremacies broke through the void and left. When these peak venerables moved, many high-level venerables and even mid-level venerables of the Snow God Palace came to watch the battle. There was no need to mention the half-king realm. In fact, even the Snow Maidens in the Immortal Palace were looking up at the sky. Although these people were definitely no match for Han Fei had to pretend to be a peak-stage venerable, so he obviously couldn't use too much power beyond that. In that case, this battle would also be worth watching. In the void, Fan Biao held a Vajra silver rod in his hand. The rod trembled slightly, and there were overlapping shadows. It looked quite powerful. Han Fei glanced at everyone. I'll give you another chance. If we attack together, we might have a chance. Don't look down on me, Phantom 10,000-pound staff. Bang, Fan Biao attacked. The void behind him collapsed, and the shadow of the staff swept over. In the blink of an eye, the rod phantom covered the sky for 1,000 feet, and layers upon layers of dozens of rod phantoms appeared. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. It was just a bombardment effect produced by high-frequency vibration. Compared to his Monkey King 3,000 strikes, it wasn't any better. In the face of such a violent blow, Han Fei gently stretched out a hand in the shocking light. Dong, the venerables. At that moment, although the void behind Han Fei collapsed, Han Fei stood proudly in the void, motionless, and his eyes were still indifferent and emotionless. Ka-cha! Han Fei clenched his fist, and the terrifying rod phantom was crushed by Han Fei with one hand. Hiss! Someone secretly exclaimed, this person's physique is so strong. He withstood Fan Biao's 10,000-pound staff with only one hand? Someone swallowed. It turns out that this person is a strong body-tempering cultivator. It's indeed rare for a body-tempering cultivator to reach such a level. A half-king said lightly, this person's physique is even stronger than that of ordinary half-king realm powerhouses. Someone stubbornly said, although his physique is strong, maybe it's just his physique. It depends on his combat ability. In the field, Han Fei's hand that crushed the rod phantom casually waved in the void. Swish! A void knife light, dazzling invincible realm, instantly crossed the sky and slashed at Fan Biao. Fan Biao retreated quickly and counterattacked with the rod phantom. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of collisions rang out hundreds of times in a row. Fan Biao's hands were dripping with blood, and he barely managed to block Han Fei's casual knife strike. Fan Biao was horrified. Just one knife strike made him feel like he was stuck in mud. Except for fighting back, he couldn't do anything else at all. Swish! However, just when Fan Biao thought he had blocked Han Fei's blow, the void trembled, and Han Fei appeared directly behind him. Not good, puff. Many people looked horrified. They saw Han Fei grab the void crack with his hand, almost freezing time, and cut Fan Biao's body in an instant. Puff. With one knife strike, Fan Biao was directly cut in half. Han Fei still put his hands behind his back, as if he had done a trivial thing, and said disdainfully, "If I can cut your body, I won't give you a chance to be reborn with a single drop of blood. I'm going to say the same thing. You'd better come at me together. It'll be more interesting with more people." Fan Biao was horrified. Others might not have felt it as deeply as he did. At the beginning, he didn't use his Tao because that was his trump card. However, when he took Han Fei's knife strike, he knew that he would never have a chance to use his Tao again. If he didn't resist, he would be killed in an instant. Bingxue Qiliang couldn't help but be amazed when she saw this scene. Although she could also defeat Fan Biao when they were in the same realm, it was definitely not so easy. He almost killed Fan Biao in one move. There was no comparison between the two at all. The other peak-level venerables all looked awful at this moment. Fan Biao might not be the strongest among them, but he was by no means the weakest. If Han Fei could defeat Fan Biao so easily, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to defeat them. Therefore, someone immediately responded, "Since Lord Saint Child thinks that he can defeat all of us, then we'll admire Lord Saint Child's strength." As soon as he said that, this person looked at the crowd and shouted, "Everyone has seen Lord Saint Child's strength. It's indeed unfathomable. I, Yangzhen, am convinced, but it's really a blessing in life to be able to fight with a strong master like Lord Saint Child." Han Fei was even more disdainful. "If you want to have a group fight, let's have a group fight. Do you have to find a high-sounding reason for yourself?" This was probably the common problem of most people. They just couldn't recognize the reality. To put it bluntly, they were just stubborn. When these 30 or so peak-level venerables were ready, many of them had already fused with their spiritual beasts, activated their Tao, and even raised dozens of domains. Many people were thinking, "Let's see. How can this Saint Child break my domain?" The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly, and the infinity water flew out and the blade purgatory was formed. Han Fei grinned. "I'm coming, swish." Han Fei instantly broke through the void. The first one to bear the brunt was a frozen domain surrounded by icicles. These icicles could be used for both attack and defense. Bam! The icicles shattered, and this person was blasted 100 kilometers away by a punch. On the other side, a person was extremely fast, trying to fight Han Fei with his speed. However, when he approached Han Fei, he suddenly felt a heavy gravity on his body, and his speed suddenly slowed down. Han Fei stretched out his hand and gently scratched his body, breaking this person into two pieces. In the end, the person shouted, "The great Tao of gravity?" On the other side, Han Fei cultivated the great Tao of space, so he used the world's end technique. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei took the initiative to chase. The two of them took only 3 steps, and Han Fei caught up with the person and pierced him with a finger. This person was shocked. Lord Saint Child is amazing. He can actually cultivate the great Tao of space. After a while, when Han Fei fought several domains head-on, someone smiled bitterly. The great Tao of strength? Lord Saint Child has really dabbled in a lot of things. More than 30 peak stage venerables seemed to be a lot, and their attacks almost covered every place. However, Han Fei's figure was too fast, and he could even move the stars. Even if Han Fei couldn't avoid them, his physique was still strong enough to make these people feel powerless. Everyone was speechless. How many great Tao does Han Fei know? Don't you know that the road to becoming a king can only be followed to the end? Someone was punched. After being reborn with a drop of blood, he was horrified. What a terrifying power! A peak stage venerable has such strength? Why didn't I discover it in the early years? Someone was shocked. Han Fei's speed, strength, and combat skills were all extraordinary, and he could walk on all kinds of great Tao and reach such a level. Is this guy still human? Even Bingxue Chuling was speechless. Is this the master of the divine palace in the Yinyang heaven? He's so proficient in all kinds of great Tao, but he looks so natural? Could it be that all immortal masters had such heaven-defying abilities? In just half an hour, more than 30 peak-stage venerables were all defeated. The onlookers were all indifferent. Someone sighed. There's no way to fight this battle. Someone tried to trick the half-king into challenging him, but the half-king glared at him. If I win, I'll have no honor. If I lose, I'll lose face. Don't ask me for this. Out of the void, Han Fei said indifferently, None of them can fight. Does anyone else want to challenge me? If not, I'm going back to cultivate. Everyone was stunned. Suddenly, someone said, Lord Saint Child, you are so strong. Why don't you compete for the violent hurricane this time? This time, the violent hurricane formed outside my ice-snow sky. If the sea-shaking wind bead falls into the hands of others, wouldn't the snow god's palace seem weak? The sea-shaking wind bead? Chapter 1729. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Bingxue Chuling. Han Fei knew that there were violent hurricanes in the outer sea. However, Han Fei hadn't learned this information from other people's memories before. Han Fei thought, isn't it common for there to be hurricanes on the sea? Is there anything special about it? However, it seems that there are still some secrets hidden in it. Bingxue Chuling knew that Han Fei didn't know much about the chaotic ocean, so she said telepathically, in the chaotic ocean, violent hurricanes are very terrifying. Because the wind is too strong, the wind in the central wind zone will gather and condense into a treasure called the sea-shaking wind pearl. This pearl is very rare. After swallowing it, you can comprehend the power of wind. However, this pearl is extremely rare and only appears in violent hurricanes. So, it has become a treasure that people compete for in the outer sea. Han Fei thought, it's not bad that it can increase my speed. Han Fei couldn't help asking, is this pearl valuable? Bingxue Chuling was stunned for a moment. Is the Yinyang heaven not rich? Does Han Fei value ultra-quality spiritual stones so much? Bingxue Chuling responded, yes, it's valuable, but it depends on how you measure it. Some people think it may be worth a dozen ultra-quality divine weapons. However, in my opinion, this pearl is a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Wow! Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. He wanted this pearl. Han Fei looked at the person who spoke and said leisurely, what you said is not wrong. In that case, I'll go there. It's not because of the sea-shaking wind pearl, but because it's on the doorstep of the snow god's temple. How can others take it away? Bingxue Chuling was speechless. Just now you asked about the price? But now you're not here for the sea-shaking wind pearl? The peak-level venerables were all stunned. Holy Child is really going there. Generally speaking, the central wind zone of violent hurricanes is something that half-king realm experts fight for, isn't it? However, some people also wanted to take this opportunity to see how strong Han Fei was. So, someone suggested, Lord Holy Child, the violent hurricanes have already been forming for 5 days. In another 2 days, the wind will be the strongest. However, it may slightly deviate from the route of the snow god's temple. If you really take back the sea-shaking wind pearl, we'll respect you. Humph! Han Fei snorted. Do I need you to obey me? Then, he glanced at ice and snow. I'm going out. But I don't like leading teams, so it doesn't matter if these people go or not. It's meaningless. Hey, wait a minute. Buzz, however, before Bingxue and Chuling finished, Han Fei had already left. This scene caused the surrounding venerables to explode. What do you mean by it's meaningless for us to go or not? Why do I not like the words of this holy child so much? Humph! Immediately, someone snorted coldly. The humans of the seabed, the 100 Demon Clan, and Windslasher Sky, all the major forces will definitely send out their experts to fight for the sea-quaking Gale Pearl. I want to see how he'll be able to snatch it by himself. Someone sneered. Since you don't want to associate with us, why should we help you? Someone said, We aren't half monarchs yet. Let's follow the other half monarchs to investigate. As for the Holy Child, it will depend on how capable he is. Seeing this from the Immortal Palace, the Snow Lady felt that Han Fei might be too arrogant. But then again, it made sense. Being able to stand proudly in the Yin-Yang sky, Han Fei might be the strongest expert in the Yin-Yang sky and the Waterwood sky. Unfortunately, no matter how strong Han Fei was, he was not a king. Since he was not a king, he was not worth betting on. So, she decided to wait and see. Outside the ice and snow sky. It was about 2 million kilometers away from the ice and snow sky. This place was not on the route of the major routes of the ice and snow sky at all. However, because it was very close to the snowy sky, it was not considered far. Therefore, it was not easy for Venerable Realm experts to get lost. Han Fei easily found the location of the violent hurricane. However, Han Fei didn't take action directly. This violent hurricane covered a huge range. The entire main wind circle covered a radius of 50,000 kilometers. Han Fei had never seen such a huge wind field. In the wind field, as soon as Han Fei released his perception, he was surprised to find that his perception could be blown off by the wind. The old turtle said, "The wind here contains the power of the Great Way." Obviously, it's the Great Way of Wind. In fact, this kind of storm was very common on the vast sea in the Age of God. This wind isn't big at all. It's just a small wind. Han Fei was speechless. Small? Then does your Age of Gods have the sea-shaking wind bead? The old turtle said, "The sea-shaking wind bead they are talking about should be the wind bead. It's a crystallization of the Great Way of Wind. It should be useful for venerables. However, it shouldn't be of much use to pioneer sea realm cultivators." Han Fei thought to himself, who cares? It's fine as long as it's useful to venerables. I haven't reached the pioneer sea realm yet. I can still use it. Just as Han Fei was on the periphery of the wind field and hadn't entered it yet, he sensed a group of sharks coming from outside the wind field. Yes, Han Fei was absolutely right. It was a group of sharks. These sharks looked a bit like blood shadow sharks, each of which was no more than 20 or 30 meters in size. Of course, at the Venerable Realm, the size of their body could be changed. Perhaps this had something to do with the habits of sharks. If they wanted to move in groups, they couldn't be too far away, so they didn't have to be very big. In fact, it was more convenient for them to swim if they were smaller. Sharks? Han Fei's eyes lit up. Venerable sharks must contain a lot of chaotic qi. If he were to accept all of them, then he might be able to recover all the energy he had used to deduce the cultivation technique. After absorbing the ordinary dragon bones, Han Fei still had a dragon head, a dragon tail, and a complete body of the azure dragon left. But these were still useful. The dragon head and the dragon tail were top-level materials for the Pioneer Sea Realm, which might be useful in the future. The body of the azure dragon might be able to exchange more things with the soul of the azure dragon in the future. In addition, Han Fei had no source of chaotic qi. Little White didn't like to spit out chaotic qi, and Little White's current realm was not high enough. It could only spit out a wisp of chaotic qi a month, which was better than hunting a few venerable realm monsters. The 100 Demon Clan, as the name suggested, was a clan formed by 100 demons. Outside the wind field, the group of 12 sharks, when approaching the wind field, began to transform with a swish. In Han Fei's eyes, this group of sharks directly turned into human beings, but their heads still looked like sharks. The upper half of their bodies had strong chest muscles, and they looked like violent freak. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Such a shark clan is really ugly. Suddenly, Han Fei seemed to understand the thoughts of the people of the Shuemu heaven when they saw the Yin-Yang heavenly being. There was no other thought at all. It was ugly. Why did it have to turn into a human when it was a fish? As a result, it turned into a fish that was neither a fish nor a human. Han Fei quietly approached in a black mist. Soon, when Han Fei approached them, He saw the relevant information. Name blood shadow shark, introduction, a common shark species. Because of the different evolutionary directions, they abandoned their original bodies and cultivated into half-human, half-shark people. Inheriting the characteristics of the blood shadow shark, the shark people are extremely aggressive and have an extremely sensitive sense of smell for blood. When fighting or hunting, their bodies can turn into shadows, quickly approach, and hunt. Level greater than 89, half-king. Quality, rare, contains chaotic chi greater than 306 points, edible effect, eating it can enhance the power of blood and energy. Collectible teeth, fins, fish bones. Absorbable. When he saw this information, Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. However, Han Fei's heart immediately surged. These were simply a group of free money. Under normal circumstances, if these blood shadow sharks evolved completely and became real human beings, the demon purification pot probably wouldn't be able to read their information. Unfortunately, this was the highest humanoid form they could achieve in the venerable realm. Therefore, Han Fei saw the amount of chaotic chi they contained. The point was that these chaotic chi could be absorbed. The chaotic chi of these guys could be absorbed. In addition to the half-king he saw, there were 3 peak-level venerables, and the rest were all advanced venerables. Han Fei was thrilled at this moment. However, he still scanned the surrounding 100,000 kilometers with his perception first. After finding no one else, Han Fei decided to take action directly. Han Fei didn't panic, and the black mist quietly attached to the body of the half-king. The moment he took action, the other 3 peak-level venerables only needed to send a few more projections, and no one here could survive. At the moment when Han Fei was about to take action, the half-king shark said, "Let's wait for another 2 days. By then, a hurricane will form and space will be lost in the wind field. We'll set up a star net. This time, we'll take the sea-shaking wind pearl and hunt the human experts. Master Bloodjade, in this case, won't we anger the human kings?" The half-king sneered. "The Gale pirates will deal with the human kings." Someone said, "Master, I just don't believe the Gale pirates. After all, they are also human pirates. Can we trust them?" "Hee," the half-king sneered. "You don't understand. The so-called race is not worth mentioning in front of interest. Human beings have their reasons for doing this." Han Fei was about to take action. However, now that he thought about it, these people still had a motive? If he killed them now, wouldn't he alert the enemy? Chapter 1730. Han Fei stayed attached to the blood jade for 2 days. In the past 2 days, these sharks had set up a concealment array to hide themselves. In this way, they could avoid encountering human beings and fighting them directly. Indeed, every time the violent hurricane was about to take shape, some people would come over. In the past 2 days, this group of sharks had been eating and drinking for 2 days. Occasionally, they talked nonsense with each other. The blood jade half-king didn't notice anything wrong and even bragged to the other sharks. "You know what? Half a year later, the land of the dead king will open. At that time, there will definitely be rivers of blood." In order to reduce the competition, this kind of open and secret competition began as early as decades ago. Among human beings, the competition is especially fierce. Han Fei had been bragging to this shark for 2 days. This was also the first big shot that Han Fei met who would tell the whole plan to his subordinate. Han Fei was speechless. Compared with the half-king in the cage and the yin-yang sky, this shark was probably the worst half-king he had ever seen. What else could you do except to show off when you told all your secrets to your subordinates? Anyway, Han Fei had now roughly known their plan. The gist of it was that the 100 Demon tribe and the Gale pirate crew had teamed up. When the violent hurricane took shape, they would set up an inescapable net to hunt the human heavenly talents. At this moment, they were at least sure that the heavenly talents of Zhan Fengtian, the Green Sky, and the 100 Flowers Palace were going to take action. The purpose of the Gale pirates was to hunt these heavenly talents, and the 100 demons wanted the sea-shaking wind pearl and half of the looted resources. Their calculations were well thought out. However, in Han Fei's eyes, these so-called plots and schemes seemed to have nothing to do with him. Han Fei didn't care about the killing of these outsiders. Han Fei only knew that this time, a lot of people from the 100 demons had come. If he could kill 50% of them, he could probably collect thousands of strands of chaotic energy, which was equivalent to thousands of dragon bones. After all, this blood jade alone had as many as 306 strands of chaotic energy. He was simply a tycoon. 2 days later, in Blood Jade's hand, a conch lit up. Blood Jade became spirited and shouted in a low voice, "Everyone, get ready to attack." The sharks were also spirited. Each of them took out a milky white sea cucumber-like object. Han Fei glanced at it and a certain information popped up. Name: Starrow's Silk. Introduction. It's made of shadowless ginseng, transparent sea silkworm, spirit-devouring jellyfish, star-concealing grass, supplemented by invisible bamboo. It can silently find and entangle specific enemies. Unless one had an extremely powerful divine soul, it was almost impossible to discover it. Quality: one-time high-quality divine weapon, attached spirit, shadowless ginseng. Effect: quietly lock on the enemy's position, recastable. Refine. Note: an extreme divine soul powerhouse has a certain chance of discovering it. Han Fei glanced at it and thought, this is good stuff. It could even actively search for and lock onto enemies? This was equivalent to planting a tracker on the enemy's body. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! Suddenly, a group of sharks released the star rose silk as if they were flying kites. Poochie! The instant the star rose silk was released, Shui Yu's body was instantly sliced into several pieces. The moment star rose silk was released, these sharks had lost their value. Han Fei drew the net much faster than them. In the blink of an eye, the half-king was chopped into several pieces. At the same time, the body of white mist also launched an attack. At the same time, the projections of the 8 peak-level venerables appeared. Who are you? Run! Poochie! How could they escape from Han Fei's attack? Anyone below the peak-level venerable level would be killed with one blow. After the void lines were fastened, they began to crazily devour the chaotic energy. In just an instant, except for Shui Yu who had been chopped into several pieces by Han Fei, no one else survived and all became Han Fei's food. The reason why Han Fei didn't kill Shui Yu immediately was that he wanted to see what secrets were hidden in this person's memory. After all, Half-King Realm experts had lived for a longer period of time, so they knew even more secrets. After quickly devouring the chaotic energy, souls, and vitality of the other sharks, Han Fei picked up their sun-moon shells. After finding the bamboo pieces that controlled the star rose silk, Han Fei controlled Shui Yu and disappeared. More than 300,000 kilometers away, Han Fei set up a large concealment array and quietly snuck into it. About 10 minutes later, Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes and frowned. The soul-searching technique also had a flaw. That was, when he saw too many memories, it was easy to confuse them with his own memories. Fortunately, Han Fei directly cut off part of the memories. Just now, when he looked at the so-called 100 demon tribe, he saw that each of the squads were in the shape of a turtle, a shrimp soldier, a crab, and an octopus. There were also a few squads that were made up of miscellaneous troops. These squads appeared in various places outside the violent hurricane, moving along with the direction of the violent hurricane. Although the positions of these people were not fixed, as long as they followed the star rose silk, they would probably be able to find them. As for the other parts of Shui Yu's memory, most of them were fake. The 100 Demons clan had a low status and had been established for less than 40,000 years. Therefore, they didn't participate in many things at the beginning at all. Perhaps the kings of the 100 Demons clan had participated in it. However, how could the kings easily reveal those messy old events to their subordinates? More likely, they would fool them with benefits. That was what kings would do. Although there was not much useful value, Han Fei saw some memories related to the Gale Pirates and the kings of the 100 Demons clan. In this memory, there were as many as 12 kings of the 100 Demons clan. Seeing this number, Han Fei didn't feel very good. These were the kings of a clan. In addition to the 100 Demons clan, there were also the Sea Humans clan, the Mermaids clan, and the Giant Beasts clan. The 100 Demon race was just one of the weaker factions in the chaotic Azure Ocean. They mainly had a large number of sea demons. They had their own water division. Their way of finding the way was no better than that of human beings. After Han Fei completely absorbed the chaotic energy of this blood jade, this time, the chaotic energy soared a lot, as many as 406 strands. A half-martial monarch realm sea demon venerable contained more chaos chi than all the remaining sea demon venerables. Han Fei's heart surged. Sure enough, hunting at sea was still profitable. In this operation, it was almost certain that he would get more than 2,000 strands of chaotic energy. At that time, if possible, he could consider upgrading the time chain. In that way, he could speed up the time of devouring the bloodline of the Ba King. Feeling Han Fei's enthusiasm and excitement, the old turtle was speechless. Will this guy really not follow in my footsteps? It seems that he has completely embarked on the devil's path. Han Fei didn't know what the old turtle was thinking. He was feeling the bamboo pieces of the Star Luo silk, which would guide him to the people captured by the Star Luo silk. Although he hadn't felt it yet, Han Fei didn't panic at all. The violent hurricane was only so big. In the end, it would show up. Suddenly, Han Fei's heart did a flip. Did someone come? It seemed that the death of the Demi-King and the previous 11 sharks had alarmed some strong masters. With a swish, Han Fei swam into the raging hurricane. The moment he entered the wind field, Han Fei allowed the wind to drag him across the void. At this moment, Han Fei clearly felt how strong the wind of this violent hurricane was. The kinetic energy of this moment was probably comparable to a peak blow of a demi-venerable. And this was just the periphery of the violent hurricane. Based on the strength of this wind field, the winds that could truly form a circle of gales would probably be blown out for millions of kilometers. Following the gale, Han Fei flew away with a void teleportation and disappeared without a trace. Even if a king came, it was impossible to find Han Fei at this moment. And just 5 seconds after Han Fei teleported away, in the void, a huge ship that looked like a phantom broke out of the wind field and broke through the wind. At the bow of the ship was a skinny bald man. His head was shiny and his eyes were filled with ferocity. This man was holding a section of a body in his hand and said indifferently, "In a moment, 12 venerables were killed. Is it a king? That's impossible. How can I not know the king's action?" The bald man said, "Let's go. Enter the wind. Since they are enemies, we will meet sooner or later." Han Fei flew through the wind. He had to admit that the deeper he went, the stronger the wind was. And this wind was not an ordinary wind, but a wind that contained the power of the Great Way. It could easily corrode bones and destroy souls. Of course, for Han Fei now, this didn't seem to make any sense. Just when Han Fei sensed that someone seemed to be captured by the Star Luo silk on the bamboo piece, he was about to go forward. Suddenly, his expression changed. He saw a phantom of wind sweeping over in the violent hurricane. It was extremely sharp and seemed to be about to sink into his body. In Han Fei's eyes, information immediately emerged. Name: Wine Demon. Introduction: Wind Demon is invisible and is formed by the wind. This is a kind of temporary creature born in the storm. They rise with the wind and disappear with the wind. Wind demons are born and grow by devouring each other. The closer to the eye of the storm, the stronger the wind demon is. Their ultimate goal is to devour the wind pearl and become a conscious and immortal wind spirit. Level 80 Quality: Rare, contains chaotic energy, 1 strand. Effect: Inedible, collectible, Great Way wind particle, absorbable. Remarks: Wind demon is invisible and is formed by the wind. Han Fei was stunned for a moment. This is rare. A creature born in the wind? More importantly, this wind spirit actually contains chaotic energy. This is even rarer. Even Bingxue Chu Ling didn't tell me. If he could keep hunting wind demons, how much primal chaos chi would he be able to get for free? Chapter 1731. Han Fei couldn't help but exclaim, "This is really a foreign land. The resource reserves of these people are really amazing. Besides, the species in the foreign land are even more amazing than those in the Yinyang heaven and the Waterwood heaven." A mere wind demon couldn't stop Han Fei. Han Fei casually killed the wind demon with a slash. A glittering light green gravel-like spot of light was about to disappear in the wind. Han Fei reached out and grabbed it, and information appeared in his eyes. Name Great Wei wind particles introduction in a place with strong wind. Great Wei particles condensed from the Great Wei of wind can enhance the chaotic energy. Level Venerable Quality High Quality contains chaotic energy 1 wisp. Remarks the Great Wei wind particles can be directly absorbed. Oh, I can just swallow it? Han Fei finally understood why so many people came to fight for the sea-shaking wind beads when the violent hurricane broke out. Many people might not really come for the sea-shaking wind beads, but to hunt the wind demons. For ordinary venerables, a wisp of chaotic energy was very rare. Those who had just entered the venerable realm probably didn't have many wisps of chaotic energy. This violent hurricane would naturally become the target of all the strong masters. And Han Fei just happened to meet Shui Yu and the others. In this violent hurricane, if there were many wind demons, ordinary venerables should come to hunt them. Han Fei found that there was a certain sense on the bamboo piece. As long as he followed this sense, he would be able to find the person caught by the star silk. Han Fei swallowed the Great Wei wind particle and heard the old turtle say, "Let me out. I'll go hunting alone." Han Fei said in surprise, "Old Yuan, can you do it? There are people hunting for you now." The old turtle said, "In this wind field, most people can't use their senses. My soul power is also at the Emperor realm. Those little things pose no threat to me." Han Fei immediately released the old turtle. Han Fei guessed that the old turtle must be tempted. Seeing that the chaotic energy was so easy to get, how could he let go of this opportunity? Han Fei didn't care about it and just said, "Okay, you can go hunting on your own. However, the final battle will definitely take place in the eye of the storm. Don't come there." "All right." Temporarily separated from the old turtle, Han Fei continued to follow his senses. In less than half an hour, Han Fei saw 2 venerables of ice and snow fighting a wind demon in this wind field. Han Fei thought sure enough. It was just that his arrival was too coincidental, and he had not encountered these slightly stronger venerables, so they were still safe and sound. When the 2 of them saw Han Fei, they were both surprised. One of them exclaimed, "Lord Holy Child?" Han Fei thought to himself, "I don't even go out. How do you know me?" It seemed like the identity of a holy child was not easy to be. Han Fei nodded mysteriously and pointed casually, and the wind demon's body exploded. Both of them were shocked. Was it really that easy to kill wind demon? Han Fei said, "Pay attention to your soul. Don't be contaminated. I've already killed more than 10 venerables of the 100 demon race. They seem to have some sinister plans. All of you don't get too close to the inner region." "Hiss. You've already killed more than 10 venerables?" The 2 of them looked at each other and said in unison, "Yes, Lord Holy Child." Han Fei didn't want to rob them. After all, they were on the same side now. He couldn't kill 2 venerables of ice and snow for a mere wisp of chaotic energy, could he? Since he couldn't get it, he might as well do them a favor and show his strength. This was the best solution. After Han Fei left, he thought to himself, "This is not a good way to find them." Han Fei took out the sun-moon shell made by the blood jade, which contained 3-star silk. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei used up all the 3-star luo threads without any scruples. Almost in the blink of an eye, the star silk was fastened to him. Knowing that the other party had an ambush, Han Fei still used himself as bait. Ordinary people didn't have such courage. Of course, Han Fei was mainly concerned about the chaotic energy. Han Fei even used his divine soul to perceive it. Soon, he sensed an almost imperceptible fluctuation in his body. It was this fluctuation that could expose his identity. Half an hour later, Han Fei had gone more than 10,000 kilometers into the inner region of the violent hurricane. Here, the number of wind demons began to increase. Almost every 10 minutes, he would encounter one. Some of these wind demons were fighting each other, and some were pouncing on Han Fei. In just half an hour, Han Fei had hunted as many as 50 wind demons. He had absorbed as many as 80 wisps of chaotic energy. After all, this was no longer the outermost area. The wind demons here were stronger in terms of strength. After waiting for so long, Han Fei encountered not only 5 or 6 human powerhouses, but also a sea demon that came to hunt him. This was an advanced, venerable shrimp soldier. Holding a shrimp spear, it suddenly jumped up and tried to sneak attack Han Fei. Han Fei grabbed the spear backhandedly and chopped the shrimp soldier's head with his hand as a knife. The shrimp soldier's shell was all broken. The shrimp soldier was horrified and was about to escape. However, it was surprised to find that it was too late for it to escape, and its soul had been controlled by the opponent. With a smile, Han Fei absorbed the opponent's vitality and soul power, and the demon purification pot swallowed the chaotic energy in the opponent's body. It was killing 3 birds with 1 stone. After a while, when Han Fei abandoned the shrimp soldier in the turbulence, he continued to move deeper. Come to think of it, the real battlefield wasn't in the periphery. According to Shuiyu, the purpose of the 100 demons and the Gale pirates this time was not the ordinary venerables, but the heavenly talents among the venerables. The range of the terrifying wind field of the entire violent hurricane was only a wind circle with a radius of 50,000 kilometers. Han Fei resisted the bone-eroding power of the hurricane and came to a place about 30,000 kilometers away from the wind field. However, as soon as he showed up, Han Fei ran into a big ship. There was a pattern of flames and hurricanes on the big ship. Han Fei immediately thought of something. Isn't this the King Gale pirates? The Gale pirates ranked 8th among the top 10 pirate group. It was said that they were hunting the heavenly talents from the nearby immortal palaces. This time, Han Fei glanced around and found that there were not many people on this ship, only 7. However, Han Fei felt that these 7 people were not weak at all. Before Han Fei was about to do anything, 6 of them broke through the void and surrounded Han Fei. Obviously, they were here for Han Fei. They must have been attracted by the star Luo silk on Han Fei. At such a close distance, Han Fei could naturally see the strength of these people. Among them, there was a demi-king, 2 peak-stage venerables, and 4 advanced venerables. Also, these people were full of vitality. They must have hunted a lot of people before this. Han Fei sneered in his heart. Although he didn't have any feelings for the human beings from other domains. After all, they had their own kings. However, they were still human beings. The Gale pirates are hunting your compatriots? If I didn't run into them, I wouldn't care. But now that I've run into them, I'll have to deal with them, someone laughed. Haha. Another peak stage venerable. This is already the 3rd one today. We're going to make a fortune, the demi-king said with a smile. Still wearing a mask? Stop pretending to be mysterious. Kill them quickly and search for the next target. This demi-king was quite arrogant. He didn't take Han Fei, who was only a peak stage venerable, seriously at all. The sound waves suddenly rose. This person's Tao was actually related to sound. The other venerables didn't seem to be affected. A peak stage venerable was holding a bow, and someone was controlling the sand. Within 800 kilometers, it turned into a sandstorm area. It seemed that Han Fei was in a desperate situation. Swish, swish, swish. Just when these people felt that Han Fei couldn't escape, they saw projections descending one after another. All of a sudden, 6 Han Feis appeared, all at the peak stage venerable level, but they couldn't see any difference, huh? Clones? Hu, the demi-king of the Gale Pirates, exclaimed in shock, and immediately felt that his sound wave domain was shaken away. A flash of light swept through the void, and his soul seemed to be directly pierced. Puff, 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 the advanced venerable was penetrated in an instant, as if he had become a puppet. The 2 peak stage venerables still wanted to escape, however. One of them was directly torn apart by Han Fei. The other one fluctuated in the irregular gravity and was minced into pieces by the chaotic knives. The demi-king was horrified and shocked. Who are you? How can these clones have such strong combat power? Clatter, a big black ship suddenly appeared. On the big black ship, the skull flag appeared. Han Fei grinned and said, "Ha ha ha, I'm the captain of the Avengers." The half-king was overwhelmed with shock, and he let out a rumbling roar. The endless sound barrier blocked in front of him. He still wanted to break through the void. It was a pity that Han Fei had appeared beside him out of nowhere. A water blade directly pierced his heart. Immediately afterward, some kind of power was controlling his soul. Han Fei put away these people's sun-moon shells and the sea-swallowing seashells, as well as the big ship of the Gale Pirates. Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth. Why did you come to me? Han Fei was absorbing the soul power and vitality of the 7 people. In the end, in less than 10 breaths of time, he suddenly felt danger approaching from the void. Could it be a king that made Han Fei feel a sense of crisis? Chapter 1732. With a thought, Han Fei took off his snow cloak and mask. He put on a black robe and simulated his aura to that of a half-king. After all, Han Fei used to be a half-king. Speaking of which, it was easy for him to simulate the aura of a half-king. Han Fei thought to himself, since the Gale Pirates dare to show up so blatantly, there's no reason why the Avengers can't show up. There's no reason why the Avengers can't show up. The appearance of the Avengers must have Han Fei's purpose. This meant that Han Fei was going to slaughter the sea demons, the Gale Pirates, and the human race. As the saying went, one could get rich overnight. This was probably what Han Fei was like. Those who were able to participate in the violent hurricane hunt were all powerhouses. For the strong, if the resources were gone, they could just earn more. As soon as Han Fei finished changing, he saw a bald man in the distance staring at him. The bald man's eyes were fierce. The moment he saw the skull flag, he knew who he had met. The Avengers, Han Fei? Han Fei even sneered. The Gale Pirates, Chen Guangjia? Because Han Fei finished killing so quickly, even though Chen Guangjia's speed was extremely fast, he was still a step too late. He could only see Han Fei standing proudly on the bow of the Avengers, looking straight at him. Han Fei waved his hand and put away the Avengers. However, Han Fei didn't escape. If he were still the saint child of the Snow God's temple, he would have fled at this moment. But now he was a pirate. When pirates met pirates, they didn't give in to each other. This Chen Guangjiao was the king of the Gale Pirate. He didn't intend to take action personally and only needed to contain the king of the Immortal Palace, who knew that the life tablet under his hand would shatter into 7 pieces in an instant. Even his half-king subordinates couldn't escape this disaster. How could he not come here to take revenge? But now, seeing Han Fei standing proudly in the void, Chen Guangjia narrowed his eyes and said, "Half-king realm? Could it be that you're courting death?" Although Chen Guangjia said that Han Fei was at the half-king realm, he would never really treat Han Fei as one. If he was really at the half-martial monarch realm, would someone really put up a sea-quelling bizarre treasure in the martial emperor city to take his life? However, the specific strength of Han Fei had to be seen after the fight. Buzz, Chen Guangjia pushed out his palm. With just this one palm strike, the surrounding wind surged, becoming more than 10 times stronger than before. The terrifying palm force pounced at Han Fei like a tide 10,000 feet high. Han Fei didn't show any weakness. He activated the power of the Great Path, and his strength almost climbed to the extreme. He drew a knife from the void, slashed the sky, and the terrifying giant palm was cut in half by Han Fei. Chen Guangjiao immediately narrowed his eyes. This kid's strength had already reached the sea expansion realm? Forbidden Wind Zone. Chen Guangjiao raised both of his hands, and the violent waves around him roared like the tide. The wind was like a divine weapon, and it seemed endless. Clang, 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 countless wind blades slashed Han Fei, making the sound of metal clashing. A golden giant suddenly condensed around Han Fei. When the golden light won, Han Fei punched the air. Han Fei laughed crazily. Chen Guangjia, the captain of the frenzied knife pirates, are you sure you want to be my enemy? Chen Guangjia snorted coldly. We've already been enemies. You slaughtered my venerables, and now you attack me. Do you really think you're a real king just because you have the combat power of a king? BM, clang, clang, clang. Although Han Fei's strength had improved during this period, he was still no match for a king. This Chen Guangjiao was even stronger than the 4 mad kings. Chen Guangjiao sneered. Didn't anyone tell you that in the wind, my strength can rank in the top 3 of the top 10 pirate groups? Bam! Han Fei retreated quickly. 2 sacrificing punches condensed on his fists, and the will of invincibility stacked up crazily. Boom! Boom! The gale was pierced. Chen Guangjia closed his hands, and a hurricane barrier suddenly appeared in front of him, resisting Han Fei's 2 sacrificing punches. He sneered. What an avenger! You've embarked on the road of invincibility? You really dare to leave. However, no matter how invincible you are, you're not a king after all. BM Chen Guangjia attacked again. In the violent hurricane, his speed was amazing. He found that Han Fei's strength was not as strong as he thought. However, in a short time, Han Fei's combat power was indeed extraordinary. Chen Guangjia roared, and the power of the Great Path suddenly increased. In Han Fei's eyes, the wind was like a divine weapon. This entire wind field was Chen Guangjia's battlefield. In an instant, Han Fei's power collapsed. Just when Chen Guangjia thought that after killing Han Fei, he could go to the martial Emperor City to exchange for a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, a blue light flashed, time was reversed, and Han Fei disappeared. The Great Path of Time? Chen Guangjia looked around. This guy actually ran away, the Great Path of Time. No wonder this person has such a high bounty in the martial Emperor City. He can control time. If he becomes a king, he will almost be an immortal king. That's F** King Bulsh *T. Which bastard issued the bounty? No, I can't let the Gale pirates take the blame. I have to increase the bounty when I go back. When Han Fei showed the Great Path of Time, Chen Guangjia knew that he had been fooled. If the guy who issued the bounty had clearly stated that Han Fei knew the Great Path of Time and had the combat power of a king, probably no one would pay attention to this bounty at all. However, the problem was that pirates were all vicious people. Once they saw a reward like a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, they would pay attention to it. They all thought that they could solve problems that others couldn't solve. Now, the corners of Chen Guangjia's mouth twitched, and he cursed in his heart, "Don't let me know who issued the bounty. Otherwise I'll kill you." Han Fei ran away smoothly, exclaiming as he ran, "This son of AB*TCH is too strong. If I didn't know the Great Path of Time, I would have been dead by now." Han Fei was horrified. Sure enough, he deserved his reputation. Even if the Gale pirates ranked 8th, so what? They were still one of the top 10 pirate groups. Their strength was much stronger than he thought. In contrast, Han Fei felt that the crazy 4 kings weren't very strong. Han Fei thought, since the Avengers have already shown up, I'll keep showing up. But the Avengers are the Avengers, and I'm still the holy child Shuizhan, a top master of the Snow God's temple. The Gemini divine technique was activated. The body of the black fog controlled the Avenger and flew away. As for the white mist, He was wearing a snow cloak and an ice mask. He charged straight into the center of the raging hurricane to surround and kill. Chen Guangjia's existence was involved in a lot of games. Perhaps this was a sneak attack by the 100 demons against the 13 outer heavens of human beings. After all, violent hurricanes were rare, and they could attract many masters. If they successfully hunted them, a large number of venerables from the 13 outer heavens would die. Why not? When Han Fei turned into the Holy Child, he had to be much more cautious. Only a few minutes later, Han Fei encountered 2 teams of people fighting. 5 advanced venerable octopuses were hunting 4 advanced venerables from the ice and snow sky. Han Fei even knew 2 of them. Aren't they the 2 King venerable ones who blocked my door 2 days ago to watch the show? When Han Fei came, both sides were surprised. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Lord Holy Child, please help us." As Han Fei could ignore them. However, as the Holy Child of the Snow God's Temple, Han Fei had to save them. Of course, even if Han Fei didn't save them, 2 or 3 of these people should be able to escape, but it would affect his reputation as a Holy Child. After all, if he returned to the Snow God's Temple and people spread the news that he didn't save them, his reputation would really be ruined. Being aloof and having a bad reputation were 2 different things. The faces of the 5 octopuses changed drastically. Not good. Retreat. Swish. In an instant, the void restriction spell. Han Fei broke through the wind and waves and arrived in an instant. He pulled out a knife and cut through the wind. With just one knife, 3 people were killed. The other 2 found that they couldn't break through the void, so they tried to break through. However, they were stopped by the people of the Snow God's Temple. Han Fei casually stabbed with his spear and killed one of them. The other one was held in Han Fei's hand like a puppet. In just a moment, the 5 advanced venerables were easily killed by Han Fei like rotten fish and shrimp. The 4 venerables of the Snow God's Temple were dumbfounded by this scene. They knew that the Holy Child was very strong. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have been captured by the Snow Lady in person. However, he was a bit too strong, wasn't he? He killed 3 of them with one knife? How were the advanced venerables different from fish and shrimps in the hands of this Holy Child? Because Han Fei wanted to devour their chaotic energy, absorb their souls, and steal their vitality. So, Han Fei pretended to stab them several times in a row. The sky rumbled, symbolizing the death of the venerables. Han Fei just looked at the 4 people in the hurricane and said, "Attention, Chen Guangjia, the king of the Gale Pirates, is here in person." Not only Chen Guangjia, but Han Fei from the Avengers is also here. Also, the kings of the 100 demons are probably here too. The violent hurricane this time is a trap. If you trust me, leave quickly and send the news back. Hiss, the 4 looked at each other in bewilderment. The Gale Pirates are here? Also, the recently famous Avengers had actually appeared? A trap! Immediately, someone said, "The Gale Pirates have done this before. They once robbed the heavenly talents of the major immortal palaces in the violent hurricane. Not only did they rob the resources, but they also demanded ransom from the major immortal palaces. They are extremely vicious." Someone was horrified. "We should go back and tell the Snow Lady about this immediately." Han Fei said casually, "The Snow Lady probably already knows. You should stop the latecomers from entering rashly. But now, the situation here is treacherous. You can't resist it." Someone asked, "Lord Holy Child, what about you?" Under the cold mask, Han Fei's voice was leisurely. "There are many lost people. I still need to save some people. Go ahead." Han Fei reached out and grabbed a few sunmoon shells. The void lines were still swallowing, and the demon purification pot was still absorbing the chaotic energy. Han Fei waved his hand, and the space fluctuated, directly teleporting them thousands of kilometers away. They were all shocked. How strong is this Holy Child? With a wave of his hand, the void changed. He has mastered the great Tao of space. Chapter 1733. The place where Han Fei was now was already within the range of advanced venerables and peak-level venerables. Further inside, Han Fei could even sense that there were enemies fighting. From time to time, some energy escaped from the void along with the violent hurricanes. However, Han Fei didn't intend to go there immediately. Although the sea-shaking wind pearl was important, such a precious thing shouldn't be swallowed as soon as he got it. Otherwise, if he needed enlightenment after swallowing it, what should he do? Besides, since the sea-shaking wind pearl was invaluable, then, after he got it, many people would definitely go after it, and they wouldn't swallow it immediately. For him, the main purpose of this trip, the sea-shaking wind pearl, was not the sea-shaking wind pearl. Hunting sea demons was the most important thing. Only by hunting could he consider upgrading the time chain as long as he accumulated enough chaotic chi. This was much more important than the sea-shaking wind pearl. Under the guidance of Star Lolth, Han Fei found 1 or 2 people almost every minute. The number of wind demons he encountered was even more than the number of people he found. If possible, Han Fei hoped that this violent hurricane could keep blowing. In this way, more wind demons would be born. There were quite a lot of people in the violent hurricane. Because this time the violent hurricane was too close to the Snow God's temple, many people from the Snow God's temple came. Even Bingxue Chuling and the others had arrived. However, the 100 Demons clan's star-gathering array had been activated. God knew how many sea demon experts were in this violent hurricane. At this moment, in a certain wind field about 10,000 kilometers away from the eye of the storm, Bingxue Chuling, 5 peak-level venerables from the Snow God's temple, and some other experts were flashing in the wind. There was a body practitioner with a giant hammer, and the 5 elements disciple that Han Fei had met before. He was fighting a group of sea demons and the gale pirate. Among those sea demons there were a few sea humans. Sea humans actually looked very similar to human beings. If they didn't disguise themselves, they only had gills on their necks, slightly different noses, and their bodies were covered with scales. However, once they disguised themselves, they could totally blend into the human race. At this moment, there were 39 human beings, sea demons, sea humans, and the gale pirates, and the two sides were engaged in a fierce battle. Obviously, the human side was at a disadvantage. Bingxue Chuling and a man with black wings, the two of them together had the power of 2.5 kings. As for the rest, a chaotic battle ensued. Bingxue Chuling shouted coldly, "Li Xuanfeng, this is a trap. Don't keep fighting, retreat to the outside." Hearing this, the black-winged man shouted, "Zhanfeng Tian, move and hold the line. Retreat as you fight." "Ha ha ha, you want to retreat now? It wasn't easy for us to capture the Snow God Palace's Saintess, Windcutter Sky's Wind Emissary, and the Avalon of 5 elements disciple. Do you think this is a place where you can leave as you wish?" A long-haired half-kingdom realm cultivator on the ship covered in flames and tornadoes shouted, "Gale slash, release, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh." A terrifying half-monarch realm wind blade shot out from the hull of the ship. When it appeared, it slashed through the void. In an instant, it caused a crack in the void and instantly shattered a Winds Layer expert. Clang, however, at that moment, above the void, ice froze into a hurricane, and frost and snow fell. A large black sword slashed out with a domineering blow, instantly shattering the great path wind blade. Sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Wow! The Snow God's palace was indeed rich. If I'm not mistaken, Saintess, you already have 1 sea-quelling bizarre treasure, right? Now another one? Looks like the Gale Pirate Gang is lucky this time. Even the top Winds Layer expert couldn't help but look at Bingxue Chuling in surprise. His status was not much lower than hers. But Bingxue Chuling already had 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures? The Snow Girl really liked Bingxue Chuling. Pan E, the 5 elements disciple, slightly frowned. He was a peak mid-level venerable, and he was secretly retreating, reserving his strength. But it was obvious that he was a bit jealous. Ding, behind them, a giant pincer stretched out of the void. The giant pincer, which was hundreds of meters wide, hit the void. In an instant, the gale collapsed, and Bingshuachuling and the others' retreat was blocked. Swish, swish, some sea humans grabbed a giant net and pulled it wider and wider, as if they were going to catch Bingshuachuling and the others. The moment the giant net appeared, Bingshuachuling yelled, "Not good. It's the heaven trapping cage. Run!" Crack, crack, crack. However, at that moment, above the void, the shadow of armor floated in the air, layer upon layer. Clang. Even though Bingshuachuling attacked with her full strength, she only managed to cut 2 pieces of armor. A white-shelled tortoise had appeared out of nowhere and sealed the path with a tortoise-shell formation. The old turtle once said that turtle shells contained the will of the heavens and hid the array, which was the power given to them by God. Once the few ways were blocked, Bingshuachuling and the others had no way out. At the last moment, Bingshuachuling took out a snow token. As soon as the token was taken out, the 100-meter-tall illusion of the snow girl stood in the sky. The illusion of the snow girl pointed her finger, trying to break the inescapable net. The half-king level expert of the Gale pirate gang also took out a jade slip. A tornado appeared on the jade essence, curving and rolling towards the snow girl's attack. Rumble. A terrifying power burst out in the cage. Even Bingshuachuling's mouth was bleeding. That 5-element disciple was the only one who used the 5 elements to block the remnant strength of the strike. Ha ha ha! The half-king level expert of the Frenzied Blade pirate gang laughed and said, "Don't waste your energy. This time, I'm trying to capture you. The captain gave me 6 tornadoes because he was afraid that you would have the king's strike. Now the king's strike is blocked. You have no other way but to surrender." As soon as the heaven trapping cage array was closed, the power of Bingshuachuling and the others was completely suppressed. At the last moment, even the 5-element disciple used the king's strike. However, as the half-king level expert of the Gale pirate gang said, they did have a jade slip that could resist the king's strike. The remaining power of the 3 kings' strikes shook the heaven-trapping cage and wounded everyone. After only 20 seconds, 17 human beings were subdued and completely suppressed. Before this, they would never have thought that they would perish in a mere exploration of the berserk hurricane. Clearly, the enemy had come prepared this time. The heaven-trapping cage array, the king's strike, the sea demons, the sea humans, and the Gale pirate gang were all working together. It was indeed hard to defend against. When those people were trapped on the Gale pirate ship, they all spat out the sun-moon shells. The people on the Gale pirate ship all smiled with excitement. Among the sea demons, a shrimp soldier jumped out of the water and stood in the void. "Half of them are ours." The half-king level expert of the Gale pirate gang snorted. "When our king returns, he'll give you your share. Now don't disturb me from collecting the spoils." The half-king level expert looked at Bingshuachuling with a smile. "Holy Virgin, 2C quelling bizarre treasures. Please." Never." "Ha ha ha. Holy Virgin, which one is more valuable, the treasure or yourself? You should know the difference. Otherwise, if you're willing to spend some time with me, I won't take your treasures. When our king comes, he'll definitely put in a good word for you." Ha ha ha! The venerables of the Gale pirate gang burst into laughter. Tsk. Old Sheen, that's a great idea. This woman is so beautiful. Old Sheen, I support you. Bingshuachuling frowned coldly. Why isn't our teacher here? How could the Gale pirate gang and the sea demons dare to come when the violent hurricane appeared at their doorstep? The half-king Sheen squatted in front of Bingshuachuling with a wretched smile. "I heard that the king candidate of the Golden Crow Heaven wants to take you back as a furnace? Tsk. Do you want me to try? Tsk. The Gale pirate gang is just SOSO. Let go of the people of the Snow God's temple, or I'll make sure you'll never be able to reincarnate." All of a sudden, 2 completely different voices rang out in the raging hurricane. One was creepy and the other was cold. "Who is it? A member of the Snow God's temple exclaimed, "It's Lord Saint Child! Lord Saint Child, let's go. Only the Snow Lady can save us." Someone exclaimed, "Look, on the other side there's a skull flag. Isn't that the legendary Avengers?" Huh! Avengers? Even the venerables of the Gale pirate gang changed their expressions greatly. Someone said in surprise, "Old Sheen, that must be it. Damn it, it's worth a sea-quelling bizarre treasure." Old Sheen narrowed his eyes and said, "Shut up and prepare to fight the enemy." He was a half-king realm expert after all. The Avengers, who had a sea-quelling bizarre treasure as a reward, were definitely not ordinary people. Besides, this man had killed 3 half-king realm experts in a row. He must not be underestimated. Old Sheen shouted, "The 100 demons and the human race at the bottom of the sea. At this point, we're about to succeed. We can't lose here." On the Avengers' ship, Han Fei was wearing a black robe, which was exactly his original appearance. Tong Yi and Bingxue Chuling recognized him at a glance. Bingxue Chuling looked to the other side in surprise, wondering if one of them was Han Fei's clone. Han Fei, the Avengers, looked at the Saint Child and said, "Yo! When did the Snow God's temple hide a half-king? Should I deal with you first or these people first?" Half-king? Many people of the Snow God's temple were surprised. Isn't the Saint Child a peak-level venerable? How come he's a half-king? Han Fei, the Saint Child, appeared on the ice lotus under him, holding a rod in his hand, and said indifferently, "Let's work together to break the array. I'll take him, and the rest is yours." Chapter 1734. The wind was roaring, and the seawater was corroded into mist, which was quickly blown away. Han Fei's body of black mist and his body of white mist were confronting each other in front of the Gale pirates and the sea demons. For Han Fei, he was not in a hurry. He had to put on a good show. His body of black mist was just attached to the projection of his half-king. At this moment, the Avenger Han Fei said, "Why don't you join hands with me?" Holy Child Han Fei said, "Why don't we fight?" Bingxue Chuling was very sure that the two of them were the same person. Seeing that the two of them were acting, it was obvious that Han Fei wanted to cover up his identity as the Avenger. Therefore, Bingxue Chuling had an idea. "Shuizhan, this person is extremely strong. In a short time, he may have the power beyond that of a half-king. Don't underestimate him." Han Fei's body of white mist glanced at Bingxue Chuling casually. "You're quite smart. I'm having fun acting. Of course, I can't kill all of them. It just so happens that I can't turn the Avenger into a real king. A king would only face other kings. It wasn't a good thing to have a high starting point. This battle could change these people's opinion of the Avenger." Ha ha ha! The Avenger Han Fei laughed wildly. "You're the first person who dares to negotiate with me. Holy Child Shuizhan, interesting. As you wish. Let's cooperate for now. The resources will belong to me, and these people will belong to you." "Humph," someone from the seabed sneered. "You're just 2 half-beast kings. How dare you talk big in front of us?" The white-shelled turtle, the lobster that came out later, Old Sheen of the Gale pirates, and the array setter of the sea humans were all half-kings. Because of this, the moment they revealed their identities, Bingxue Chuling and the others couldn't escape. There were 4 half-kings. Therefore, they thought that the Avenger and Holy Child Shuizhan were only 2 half-kings at most. How could they take down all of them? The Avenger Han Fei moved forward in the storm. So did the Holy Child Han Fei. One of them was evil, and the other was cold. One was dressed in a black robe, and the other was dressed in a snow-white cloak. Both looked very proud and aloof, as if 2 great experts were having a duel. Old Sheen's expression was cold as he suddenly shouted, "Do it, Buzz!" The Gale pirate group immediately attacked. On the other side, the wind on the bow of the ship blasted at the Holy Child Han Fei. On the other side, the violent tornado rushed to Han Fei, the Avenger. However, the way they dealt with it was different. Han Fei, the Avenger, stretched out his hand and made a bloody claw mark in the air, full of murderous intent, which was daunting. The illusionary hand grabbed at the rift and crushed the tornado into pieces. As if he had just done a trivial thing, the Avenger suddenly charged at the shrimp soldier closest to him with Black Death energy under his feet. Han Fei, the Avenger, said, "If you let this ship go, the ice-snow world will never have peace." These words were naturally directed at the holy boy, Han Fei, who was still acting. At this moment, the holy boy, Han Fei, immediately used the instant technique, blew up the wind with a spear, and slashed out the embroidery needle in his hand. Old Qin shouted, "Prepare for void teleportation. Don't be greedy. Caution is the parent of safety. Hold on until our king wins." However, Han Fei held the embroidery needle with both hands and shouted, "Open!" Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, the shadow of the rod shot out 100 waves. The terrifying power smashed down like a storm. On the Gale pirate group's ship, someone shouted, "Old Qin, the vibration is too great. We can't use void teleportation." Old Qin looked at Han Fei's strength. It seemed that Han Fei was only in the half-king realm. Although he seemed to be a little stronger than him, it didn't seem to be much stronger. Old Qin roared, "Damn it, the ice-snow world is only one person. How can you resist the elite Grand Masters of the Gale pirate group on my ship? Let me teach you a lesson." In the blink of an eye, the Avenger, Han Fei, drew his knife and cut the shrimp soldier in the half-king realm in an instant. This was the crushing of power, the crushing of the great Tao. The shrimp soldier didn't even realize that he, a dignified half-king realm cultivator, couldn't even resist one blow. Boom! In the sky, the great Tao roared and a slight crack appeared. After all, the half-king realm cultivator had died, and the heavens' cry would still come. However, it wasn't that strong. However, everyone was shocked by the strength of the Avenger, Han Fei. He was a F***king half-king realm cultivator. Not a small fry, but a single blow killed him? How strong was the F***king Avenger, Han Fei? Not only that, when he killed the shrimp soldier, Han Fei's figure suddenly appeared from the void and appeared behind a peak-level venerable. Puff, with one blow, the peak-level venerable didn't even have time to run. Half of his body escaped into the void, and the other half was cut off. But as a result, the Avenger, Han Fei, reached into the void and grabbed him. With a forceful stomp, he directly crushed it. And the black fog on the Avenger, which was Han Fei's real black fog body, appeared on the body of another peak-level venerable at some point. As soon as the black fog surrounded him, the flesh and blood on the man's body disappeared, and his body stiffened for no reason, as if he had been frozen. He couldn't even escape. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, there were 3 consecutive roars, and cracks appeared on the great Tao. At that moment, on the hull of the Gale pirates, the captured people all exclaimed, "So strong, this person is so strong." Someone was shocked. This. In an instant, he killed a half-king realm cultivator and 2 peak-level venerables. Is he a king? Gulp, someone swallowed his saliva. Is this the legendary Avenger? Just as everyone was shocked by Han Fei, the Avenger, slaughtering 3 great monarchs in a row, with a loud bang they saw Old Qin, the captain of the fierce Gale pirate ship, who had just gone out to fight Han Fei, being smashed to pieces. They saw that the embroidery needle in Han Fei's hand was getting faster and faster, and it even smashed the formation of the Gale pirate ship. What they didn't notice was that when they focused their eyes on Han Fei, the Avenger, Han Fei secretly stunned Old Qin with the divine spike for a moment. It was at that moment that Old Qin died. What he shouldn't have done was to leave the formation and challenge Han Fei in person. Boom. At the moment when Old Qin was smashed away, everyone saw that Han Fei suddenly deviated a kilometer and smashed his rod into the void. Old Qin tried to escape back to the ship with his soul and fight for a chance to be reborn with a single drop of blood. But Han Fei seized the opportunity and killed him with one blow. Boom! Everyone just turned their heads and were shocked. In a short time, 2 half-kings had died. And 2 peak-level venerables had died. How strong were these 2 people? How could they be so strong? However, when Han Fei was fighting, the seabed human was not doing nothing. The big net had been opened, and in the void behind him, a big lobster stretched out its huge pincer again. Bing Shui shouted, "Watch out for the heavenly cage array." Han Fei had already seen this move. How could he be fooled? The holy child Han Fei suddenly turned around, held his rod with both hands, and stabbed out like a horse stance. Bm the void changed, and Han Fei knocked on the heavenly gate. Under the shocked gazes of the experts of the Snow God's Temple and the Wind Slasher pirates, Han Fei stabbed the 100-meter-long giant pincer into pieces. Not only the giant pincer, but also most of its head was shattered. At the moment when the big lobster was stabbed, the Avenger, Han Fei, appeared there with a star shift. He clenched the void lines, and the seawater turned into billions of blades, instantly cutting into the body of the big lobster. With the cooperation of the 2, another half-king died in less than half a second. At this moment everyone present panicked. The 100 demons, the seabed human, and the Gale pirates were all dumbfounded. Where did these 2 come from? Why are they so strong? There were only a few half-kings in total, and only the seabed human and the white-shelled turtle were left. As soon as the lobster died, the heavenly cage array collapsed. The seabed human roared, "Let's go!" The white-shelled turtle had already disappeared. In the eyes of these people, the Avenger, Han Fei, and the holy child Shuizhan were too efficient. The 2 of them only targeted the half-kings and the peak-level venerables. He killed 3 half-king realm experts in a single move, and even a peak venerable realm expert couldn't react in time? How could they fight them? Even the half-kings had died. Were they going to get themselves killed? This time, Han Fei didn't care about the escaping seabed human but looked at the body of white mist and continued to act. "I didn't expect that there would be someone like you in the ice and snow world. Haha, why don't we have a fight?" However, the body of white mist said coldly, "Finish it quickly. When the half-kings come, you won't be able to escape." The others had already escaped, and the Avenger, Han Fei, bombarded the big ship with his blood-stained fist marks. Holy Child Han Fei knocked the heavenly gate with his spear. With just one blow, a gap was blasted in the formation of the big ship. At the moment when the formation of ships was broken, some people jumped off the ship and fled, and some tried to take hostages. However, the Avenger, Han Fei, appeared on the big ship and started a bloody massacre. Before these people could take action, they were almost dead. On the same ship, only the 3 people who jumped off the ship first could really escape. At this moment, the 17 people from the Xiantian sect who were tied up looked at each other in shock. The situation was reversed 2F** King Fast. The Avenger, Han Fei, glanced at Bingshu Chuling and the others, which gave them goosebumps. Among them, Bai Yi, the 5-element disciple, was horrified. This man was full of murderous intent. Last time, he was lucky enough to escape. Who knew that he would meet him again in just a few days? Just when everyone was horrified, the holy child Han Fei grabbed a pile of sun moon shells and said, "The resources you want are all here. If you don't let them go, I will throw them into the endless void." Ha ha ha. The Avenger, Han Fei, said gloomily, "This 5-element disciple belongs to me. I have a personal grudge against him. If you don't give them to me, these people will die. As for the resources, I can get more. First, asking for votes." End of this chapter. Chapter 1735. Tong Yi's heart turned cold on the spot. The strength that this fellow had displayed just now was already terrifying enough. Even a half-monarch realm expert couldn't withstand 2 moves from him. At this moment, the other party had specifically asked him to stay. At this critical moment, staying would only mean death. Even Bingshu Chuling was a little stunned. If Han Fei wanted to kill Bo Yi, then Bo Yi would definitely die. She roughly knew the reason. but she didn't expect Han Fei to be so vengeful. The holy child replied indifferently, "Fine." In that instant Tong Yi shouted, "Brother Shui, I am one of the 5 elements' disciples. If Brother Shui protects me, I will gain the friendship of the Avalon of 5 elements." Han Fei, the Avenger, asked with great interest, "What do you think?" The holy child said calmly, "I don't need friendship." He. Then Avenger Han Fei suddenly grabbed Bo Yi, stepped into the void and said, "Give me the resources." Han Fei, the holy child, threw a pile of sun-moon shells at him without hesitation. He acted right away, ripping open the heaven trapping cage formation from the outside. While everyone was rejoicing over their narrow escape, they heard the voice of the Avenger, Han Fei, floating over from the big black ship in the distance. "Interesting. I hope we can work together again in the future." Buzz, the Avenger, broke through the wind and left. Although the Venerables watched Han Fei give up on the 5 elements' disciples, fortunately, their lives were saved. Everyone thought that if someone was to be blamed for this matter, it would not be Holy Child Shuizhan's fault, but that person. If you have nothing better to do, why did you take the initiative to provoke the Avenger? Which pirate who dared to openly plunder didn't have a few tricks up his sleeve? Did he really think he was so arrogant just because he was the disciple of a king? Now that he had encountered a tough opponent, wouldn't he be crushed? The black-feathered youth said, "Brother Shui, I'm Li Xuanfeng of Wind-Slasher Heaven. If it wasn't for Brother Shui's help, I would have died. I thank Brother Shui." The expert from the Thunder Fire Heaven said, "Lin Xiang of the Thunder Fire Heaven thanks Lord Holy Child. If there's a need in the future, Lin Xiang won't refuse." The people of the Snow God's Palace also said, "Thank you for your help, Lord Holy Child." Someone said with a red face, "Lord Holy Child, I am truly ashamed. I really shouldn't have doubted your strength before." Han Fei glanced at the man casually. "Who is this? If I don't remember, then forget it." Han Fei said casually, "I saved you because I didn't have to." However, that Han Fei is extremely powerful. If I go all out, I probably won't be a match for him. If we encounter them in the future, just run away. Everyone was taken aback. So, Lord Holy Child's attention was all on Han Fei? However, when they thought of Han Fei, they were all secretly horrified. That man was indeed terrifying. Even a half-king realm expert was nothing in front of him. This was the first time they had seen a pirate who dared to go against the whole Gale pirate crew in the middle of a violent hurricane. They guessed that even if Saint Child Shuizhan was not there, Han Fei could still keep a lot of people here. Bingbing Shui didn't want to ask Han Fei what he was going to do with the dead one. She simply asked, "Teacher must have been stalled by someone, right? This means that there are many monarchs here, and this sea-quaking breeze pearl will be difficult to obtain." Someone said, "Yeah, Lord Holy Child, although violent hurricanes aren't common in this region of the sea, it's not easy to see them. However, it would always appear once every few years. Let's fight for it next time, shall we?" However, Han Fei snorted. "I said I'll take it, so I'll take it." Then, Han Fei looked at Bingbing Shui and said, "You either go back or go to the edge. I don't know what's going on in the eye of the storm. I'll go and check it out." Bingbing Shui nodded slightly. "Be careful." The reason why she agreed so quickly was that she knew Han Fei's real strength. As the master of the Yinyang Fairy Palace, Han Fei probably had the combat power of a king. However, they couldn't do it. Bingbing Shui knew the horror of the Pioneer Sea realm because she had been with a king for a long time. There was an almost insurmountable gap between a king and a venerable. If they really wanted to fight, the result would be no different from courting death. A moment later, on the Avenger, the 5 elements' disciples were uneasy. He said, "Your Excellency, what happened last time was really a misunderstanding. I know I can't refute it, but it's useful. The Avalon of 5 elements is not weak among the 13 outer heavens. If you need resources, I think I'm valuable enough." Han Fei smiled contemptuously. "I'm not short of money. That's why I caught you. I just want to tell you one thing so that everyone here knows. Sniping the Avenger comes with a price. Puff, Han Fei simply sent him to hell. With his current wealth, he didn't lack anything. How could he talk about money with him? Han Fei steered the Avenger, sailing in the hurricane, and counted the spoils on the way. Unfortunately, he didn't get many good things. In the Sun-Moon shell, there were the power of the 5 elements and dozens of bottles of various elixirs. In addition, there were 8 ultra-quality divine weapons and more than 600,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei was speechless. Are these people really so rich? And they're only at the peak of the intermediate venerable realm. They're even richer than a half-king. There's nothing else to say except that he's lucky. However, no one had a sea-quelling bizarre treasure in their Sun-Moon shells. Of course, he would return Bing Bingshue's Sun-Moon shell to her later. All in all, he made a big profit by robbing a large number of resources, which doubled his wealth. Han Fei's resources were so abundant that he couldn't use them all. However, no one would dislike having more resources. The White Armor Emperor had hidden a large number of resources. He couldn't be satisfied with such a small profit. The people outside were used to living a rich life. It was time for him to have a good fortune. Han Fei suppressed his temper. After half an hour, he pointed with the nautical panorama and found that the sea-shaking wind pearl was still in the eye of the storm, so he didn't go there. Han Fei hunted a few more times outside alone. Every time Han Fei hunted, if it was alone, he would kill it. If it wasn't alone, he would kill half and let the other half go. In the eye of the storm, Han Fei killed 7 sea demons in one round. He also killed 45 wind demons along the way. He had already broken through 2,000 wisps of chaotic chi, reaching as many as 2,304 wisps. After all, many half-kings had died in Han Fei's hands. And those below the half-king realm, even those at the peak level venerable level, didn't have much chaotic chi. It could be seen that if he wanted to loot the chaotic chi from the sea demons, then he had to start with the sea demons at the half-king realm. Han Fei was about to find some more wind demons to fight, when he suddenly sensed something and the old turtle warned, "Run!" In the blink of an eye, in the strong wind, the sky changed color, and 3 huge tentacles sealed a part of the space. Han Fei must have been a robber, so the king of the 100 Demons clan had to come to find him in person. If they didn't come, they would be slaughtered by Han Fei. This was supposed to be a plan to hunt the human race, but they ended up losing their own people? Just for this, they even sent a king. If the other kings of the 100 Demons clan knew about this, they would laugh their heads off. Therefore, a king of the 100 Demons clan deliberately ignored the battle and came here to hunt. However, at the moment when its tentacles attacked, Han Fei immediately put away the Avenger. At the same time, his strength soared to the strongest, and he began to flee frantically. At this time, the body of Black Fog was fleeing, and the body of White Fog was running in the opposite direction. As the old turtle said, in such a wind field, kings and venerables could perceive each other. However, their perception range would be greatly reduced. Therefore, as long as the body of White Fog ran far away, these kings couldn't really catch him. Of course, as the captain of the Avenger, who was said to be comparable to a king, he couldn't be killed without doing anything that would definitely arouse suspicion. Therefore, Han Fei had to pretend to escape. Bam! The void barrier was shaking violently. A deep voice sounded, "Han Fei, the Avenger, you can't escape today." Han Fei sneered. "It turns out to be a big octopus." "What? Do you think you're so big?" "I've been craving octopus fish recently. Give me some skewers." "Humph." Han Fei activated the blade purgatory, and the murderous intent within 300 kilometers was dense. Unfortunately, this was in the violent hurricane. Otherwise, the blade purgatory would only be stronger. Clang, 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 clang. Han Fei drew his knife from the void and was about to fight, when he saw the shadows of tentacles all over the sky slapping down hard. "Damn it! Kill!" Han Fei roared, and the tide under him turned into knives and slashed at the void tentacles all over the sky. This time, he didn't even see the shadow of the king, only a few tentacles. If he was defeated so easily, how could he be called an avenger? Puff, puff, puff. Han Fei's aura weakened a little. However, the vast sea as a blade still managed to withstand this attack. Besides, Han Fei not only withstood the blow but also shattered the void seal. "Hey! Big octopus, come out and fight me!" At that moment, a figure appeared in the void, but it was an octopus with a human head and slippery tentacles everywhere. Forbidden spell here. Swish! Han Fei directly cast a forbidden spell. The octopus king's face changed immediately. This man is not a king, but he has a lot of means. This forbidden technique was no laughing matter. What would happen if he reached the Pioneer Sea state? As soon as the octopus threw out its tentacles, the void almost collapsed, and the Tao here was forcibly destroyed. Taking advantage of this moment, Han Fei directly performed the void teleportation that he had long prepared. Asshole, the Octopus King didn't expect that Han Fei was waiting for it to break the forbidden spell. Of course, the Octopus King didn't use all its power to break the forbidden spell. One of its tentacles tried to wrap around Han Fei. However, Han Fei used the close distance technique and ran further away. So, a strange sound wave directly broke through the void. When Han Fei teleported, it fell on Han Fei's body. Han Fei's body of black fog collapsed halfway through the void teleportation. After all, this was just a body of black fog, not his real body, so it didn't matter that it couldn't withstand this blow. After the twins returned to one, Han Fei sighed. This trip to the violent hurricane should come to an end. He couldn't mess with this king anymore. It turned out that up to now, any king he met could crush him. As the saying went, if you always walk by the river, you will get your shoes wet. Han Fei made up his mind. After taking this sea-shaking wind pearl, he would go into seclusion and break through to the half-king realm again. Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1736. Among the 36 Xuantians, there was a consensus that the Yin-Yang Tao of the Yin-Yang Heaven was the best escape technique. Perhaps they didn't want to admit how powerful the Yin-Yang Tao was, but they had to admit that it was difficult for those who had mastered the Yin-Yang Tao to die. He guessed that the Octopus King must be bursting with anger. He only made a slight mistake and only had time to touch Han Fei. He didn't know whether he was dead or not. Anyway, Han Fei was gone. At this moment, Han Fei entered Forge the Universe for a short time to rest and heal his injuries. Then he appeared in the hurricane again as a saint child. In the eye of the storm, the vision was extremely clear and the air was extremely fresh, but the temperature had dropped a lot. However, there were 4 kings fighting fiercely here. Chen Guangjia, the captain of the Gale pirates whom Han Fei had seen before, and a king who looked like a sea human, were fighting the Snow Lady and a man whose figure was blurred and looked like a floating ghost. The Snow Lady said, "Chen Guangjia, if the kings of the 100 demon clans can't all come today, let's see how you can escape unscathed. If you want to leave, you have to ask for my permission first." Suddenly, an octopus tentacle broke out of the void. A deep voice rang out, "Retreat." Chen Guangjia seemed to have received some information from this octopus, but soon after, his expression became extremely unsightly. An entire ship of his subordinates had been wiped out. This was the second time today that his crew had been wiped out. Both times, his subordinates on the 2 ships died one after another in an instant. Before he could rush over, everyone would already be dead. When second brother Qin died, Chen Guangjia quickly concluded that the murderer must be Han Fei of the Avengers. He thought to himself, since Han Fei is a pirate, he won't let go of those human heavenly talents easily. Therefore, he sent a message to the Octopus King through the wind, not to kill Han Fei, but to intercept those human heavenly talents. But damn it, this guy said that the human heavenly talents escaped? And he didn't see any of those human heavenly talents. It was supposed to be a flawless plan, but at this moment, the chicken had been smashed and the eggs had been smashed. He didn't catch the human heavenly talents, but he lost 2 ships. At this moment, he was on the verge of exploding. The purpose of this inescapable net was to capture Bingxue Chu Ling. No one knew why he did this except for himself. But now everything was for naught. One could imagine that the losses this time were simply too great. The other kings also noticed that something was wrong with Chen Guangjia. All of a sudden, Chen Guangjia attacked the center of the eye of the storm. There was a faint cyan mist of light swirling there. A sparkling pearl was truly absorbing the great Tao of wind that was gathering from all directions. In the instant that Chen Guangjia made his move, the person next to the Snow Lady, who should be the Wind's Lair King, also made his move. This person was the same as Chen Guangjia. Perhaps it was because they both cultivated in the great Tao of wind, but logically speaking, they should be the type to harvest each other's li. The two of them instantly started fighting. At this moment, the Snow Lady was a little confused. Chen Guangjia was trying to get rid of us, so why did he provoke the sea-quaking wind pearl? That thing was useless to him, right? However, it was just a pearl. How could it withstand the impact of the battle between 2 kings? The sea-quaking wind pearl was thrown into the raging hurricane by the airwaves from the battle between the two. Chen Guangjia yelled, F***CK, I didn't get any benefits because of you. Then you will die with my subordinates. Chen Guangjia laughed loudly, and the jade tablet on his waist vibrated. Fierce Wind Pirate Team, retreat from the hurricane immediately. Immediately after that, a tornado was formed with Chen Guangjia as the center. The Wind's Lair King saw this and instantly exclaimed, Chen Guangjia, are you crazy? If you seal the eye of the storm, the great Tao of wind in the entire raging hurricane will only become stronger and stronger. You are not only slaughtering humans, you are also slaughtering monsters. The human expert from the bottom of the sea also yelled, Chen Guangjia, what do you mean? What happened to the plan we agreed on? The octopus of the 100 demons also yelled angrily, Chen Guangjia, you broke the agreement. Your fierce wind pirate team will become the prey of the 100 demons. Tisk, the wind around Chen Guangjia became louder and louder. He sneered. When doing business with pirates, you must be prepared to change your plans at any time. Heh, see you guys later. The human expert from the bottom of the sea shouted, Bastard! The octopus of the 100 demons roared angrily, 100 demons, retreat from the raging hurricane! Boom! Chen Guangjia disappeared in the wind with a series of explosions. The Wind's Lair King said, he sacrificed one of his body of wind. He is willing to sacrifice 10% of his strength to seal the eye of the storm. I will go find the sea-quaking wind pearl, and inform the others to retreat. Swoosh, swoosh, once Chen Guangjia left, the Snow Lady raised her ice staff. Countless icicles formed in the sealed eye of the storm and shot toward the human expert from the bottom of the sea. The human expert yelled, Snow Lady, why are you bothering me instead of finding the sea-quaking wind pearl? The Snow Lady said, someone has to pay the price. I don't have the ability to find the wind pearl, but I can make you stay. The Snow Lady didn't look good. She had thought that there would be 1 or 2 kings of the 100 demon clan coming over. Who would have thought that the fierce Gale pirate group, the 100 demon clan, and the sea humans would set up an ambush, and even hold back the kings of the human race. Fortunately, Chen Guangjia's plan didn't go as planned. In a fury, Chen Guangjia sealed the eye of the storm and made the hurricane even more violent. If this went on, the great Tao wind pearl wouldn't be able to break through the seal and gather again. As a result, more and more spatial cracks appeared in the hurricane. Those below the advanced venerable level couldn't survive in the raging hurricane. After all, the great Tao wind pearl that was supposed to be absorbed by the sea-quaking wind pearl was running amok in the hurricane. The sea-quaking wind pearl was blasted into the hurricane. Even a king couldn't find it. After all, the great Tao wind pearl could affect one's senses. Even a king couldn't avoid it. Chen Guangjia sacrificed part of his strength to prepare for two things. One was to seal the eye of the storm. This kind of seal could be broken. However, the Windslayer King needed to expend more energy to break it. But what could he do even if he broke it? It would take at least 5 days for the sea-quaking wind pearl to be completely condensed. Even if it was condensed again, the power in the raging hurricane would only get stronger and stronger. If the hurricane got stronger and stronger, it would be equivalent to the collapse of a void spanning 100,000 kilometers. Countless creatures would be sucked into the endless void. This was also the reason why the Windslayer King went out to look for the sea-quaking wind pearl, Han Fei was rushing to the eye of the storm when he suddenly found that the wind around him was getting stronger and stronger. Han Fei didn't know what was going on. At this moment, even an advanced venerable couldn't resist the power of the core wind field for long. Besides, the whistling sound was still getting stronger. Even the spatial cracks were being scraped out. Wasn't this a bit exaggerated? The old turtle said, "Something's wrong. In the hurricane, the great Tao of wind has a place to go. Since it has a place to go, it won't create spatial cracks. I'm afraid something has happened inside." Han Fei wondered, Is this abnormal? The old turtle nodded. No. Han Fei thought of something. If there were kings fighting in the eye of the storm, wouldn't it be asking for a fight if he went there? And he would expose his strength for nothing. But if he didn't go there, Han Fei didn't know what was going on. Han Fei pondered for a moment and threw a projection over. The projection descended. The projection of the Saint Child, who was at the peak level of the venerable realm, broke the wind barrier with a puff and entered the eye of the storm. As a result, Han Fei was surprised to find that the Snow Lady was fighting with an Atlantean. Han Fei's abrupt appearance made the Snow Lady's eyes light up. She shouted, "Snow battle!" The sea-quaking wind pearl was blasted into the hurricane by Chen Guangjia of the Gale Pirates. You must find the sea-quaking wind pearl and bring it back. Otherwise, the hurricane will get stronger and stronger. In the end, the power of the great Tao will disperse in the hurricane, or the entire wind field will be sucked into the endless void. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What the hell would be sucked into the endless void? Was there something wrong with Chen Guangjia's head? Didn't you trick the 100 demon race and the ocean human race as well? Hearing this, Han Fei was dumbfounded. He turned around and left, not even leaving behind a single word. Han Fei's real body was also dumbfounded at this moment. He cursed, "Chen Guangjia is a big idiot. He's even crazier than the 4 mad kings. If such a huge wind field collapses, how many venerables will die?" The old turtle asked, "Is the wind pearl gone?" Han Fei snorted. "No, I have to find it." The nautical panorama appeared in Han Fei's hand. Crack, 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 the nautical panorama spun rapidly. Seeing this, Han Fei didn't feel good at all. He activated the power of the great Tao and quickly chased after it. In this violent hurricane, the bead's movement speed was extremely fast. Therefore, the nautical panorama also spun super fast. Fortunately, when Han Fei's speed soared, the nautical panorama slowed down. In just over 10 minutes, Han Fei stabilized the rotation speed of the nautical panorama. Although there was still a slight shake, he could already observe it. However, after a while, the effect of the nautical panorama disappeared. After all, the nautical panorama could only be used 3 times a day. It wouldn't point endlessly and could only provide help for a few minutes. As soon as Han Fei made some progress, the nautical panorama stopped. In this case, how could he find the pearl? Fine, let's take a gamble. Han Fei maintained an extremely high speed. The nautical panorama could only be used once today. This was the last time. If it was used up, he would have to call for help and run away. Crack, crack, crack. Seeing the nautical panorama spinning again, Han Fei's figure broke through the wind and darted around in the wind and waves. Swish! When Han Fei saw a flash of light cyan light in front of him, he was shocked. Found it! Damn, so fast! Han Fei hurriedly chased after the cyan light. In the blink of an eye, the two drilled through thousands of kilometers in the gale. Han Fei's speed was superimposed with the close distance technique. If it were anyone else, they might not be able to catch up with him. Han Fei's void big hand blocked in front of the wind pearl. With a loud bang, his void hand was almost shattered. But Han Fei cursed, "Son of AB*TCH. If it weren't for the nautical panorama, I would be blind now." Third watch. Asking for votes. Smida. End of this chapter. Chapter 1737. Han Fei grabbed the sea-shaking wind pearl. As soon as he stopped, he saw several powerful wind demons around him. Han Fei turned around and found that the strength of one of the wind demons had soared to the quasi-king realm. This should be the result of swallowing a lot of wind demons, but the speed of improvement was too fast. In just a few days, this violent hurricane was able to create a quasi-king realm wind demon? While Han Fei was surprised, the old turtle said, "Your strength is just a facade. If this little wind demon can swallow the wind pearl, it can become a wind spirit. Once this violent hurricane is gone, it will just be a wind spirit. Its strength is at most a peak-level law enforcer." Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself, "You scared me. Do you really think it will only take 7 days to create a quasi-king realm wind demon in this violent hurricane?" Han Fei drew his knife from the void and cut these wind demons into pieces. However, the most powerful quasi-king realm wind demon was reborn with the help of the wind. Not only was it reborn, but dense wind blades burst out on the surface of the wind demon's body. Its power was no weaker than Han Fei's million knife art. Clang, 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 the old turtle said again. "Although the wind has receded, it is still very weak. But in this wind, it is still very strong." Han Fei curled his lips. "There is no wind here." Then the void froze. This stillness only lasted for a very short moment. After all, the power of Han Fei's imagination couldn't compete with the violent hurricane full of the great way of wind. However, at this moment, Han Fei drew his knife again. This time, he drew a wind blade from the wind demon's body and cut it in half. Han Fei reached out and grabbed a great way wind grain. That single pellet contained a total of 30 strands of primal chaos energy. Han Fei was quite shocked by the number. He really hoped that there would be more wind demons like this. In this wave alone, Han Fei harvested more than 50 wisps of chaotic energy. Han Fei held the sea-shaking wind pearl in his hand and glanced at it. Information appeared in his eyes. Name Wind Pearl, incomplete. Introduction, a crystallization of the great way of wind. After taking it, one can understand the way of controlling the wind, and has a certain chance to comprehend the great way of wind. The wind pearl contained a large amount of primal chaos chi, which could be swallowed directly. If a creature in the wind consumed it, there was a certain chance that it would gain sentience and become a spirit of the world. Level, venerable level, quality, divine quality. Contains chaotic energy, 168 wisps. Note: the wind bead can be taken directly, but it needs to be comprehended calmly. Han Fei read the introduction of the wind pearl and was surprised to find that it was a divine quality crystal. Furthermore, this tiny bead actually contained 168 strands of chaotic chi, and it was only in an incomplete state. The most important thing was not how much chaotic chi was contained in the wind bead, but how could it lure the wind demon over. As long as he kept holding on to the wind pearl, didn't it mean that there would be an endless supply of chaotic chi coming to him? That Chun Guangjiao was really his lucky star. He had given him another wave of benefits. However, at this time, Han Fei was still busy. Now, Han Fei had to hurry to the eye of the storm. In this place, one's perception was not smooth, and sound was also obliterated in the wind field. There were definitely many people hunting. Although these people had nothing to do with Han Fei, they were still venerables. How could it be so easy to become a venerable? If something really happened, Han Fei wouldn't be able to bear it. Han Fei broke through the wind without any scruples. A moment later, with a bang, Han Fei broke through the wind, holding the wind pearl in his hand, and looked at the Snow Lady who was still fighting with the Sea Human King. Han Fei said in surprise, "Are they still fighting?" Seeing that Han Fei had retrieved the sea-shaking wind pearl earlier than the Wind Lord, the Snow Lady was surprised. How did he find it? But at this moment, the eye of the storm had already fallen into the domain of ice and snow. The Sea Human King wanted to escape, so he was locked in a fierce battle with the Snow Lady. The King of the Sea Humans was surprised to see that Han Fei had found the wind pearl. But then his eyes turned cold, and a projection appeared and charged at Han Fei. The projection of a Sea Human King was only half a Sea Human King. Han Fei didn't move at all but said indifferently, "What makes you think that a Sea Human King can kill me?" Han Fei stretched out his hand, and the embroidery needle appeared in his hand. Hundreds of beasts devoured souls. The projection paused. Han Fei stabbed the heavenly gate with his rod and blew up the projection of this Sea Human King. The Sea Human King was stunned too. Wait, the projection of a Sea Human King is gone just like that? Han Fei sneered and instantly raised his strength to the strongest state. Han Fei had killed Sea Human Kings before, but he knew that even Sea Human Kings had their limits and could be killed. When he was about to attack, he heard a bang, and the Wind Lord broke through the wind and returned. Han Fei immediately concealed his strength, and the Wind Lord looked at Han Fei in surprise. "You found him?" The Snow Lady hurriedly shouted, "Ling Feng, stop him." Ling Feng should be the Wind Lord's name. At this moment, the two Sea Human Kings attacked. The Sea Human King's face changed greatly, and he quickly retreated, holding a withered ancient stick in his hand. At that moment, Han Fei saw at least 100 wisps of chaotic energy being injected into the ancient stick. A centipede thousands of feet long slithered out of the ancient stick. The Sea Human King bellowed, "Snow Lady, Ling Feng, I'll remember you." Rumble, the ancient stick and the centipede detonated at the same time. The endless dark green poison instantly pierced through the ice domain. Han Fei quickly retreated, and raised a giant shield in front of him. Thud! Han Fei was shaken back, but fortunately, a gust of wind held him back. There was also a large gust of wind in front of him. In fact, Han Fei could deal with this force by himself. However, since the Wind Lord had taken action, he didn't have to show more power. The terrifying self-explosion swept across tens of thousands of kilometers around. Even the violent hurricane with unparalleled power was filled with this force, and the wind's speed was slowed down. In the billowing smoke and dust caused by the self-explosion of the sea-quelling bizarre treasure, only Han Fei, the Snow Lady, and the Wind Lord were left in the eye of the storm. In addition to the power of the explosion, the entire eye of the storm was now filled with poisonous fog. Han Fei took a deep breath, and his skin began to turn slightly darker. The Snow Lady was about to help Han Fei detoxify, but the blackness on Han Fei's body began to fade slowly. Han Fei exclaimed in his heart, "What a powerful poison!" Fortunately, he had completely accommodated the detoxifying power of the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect. Otherwise, he would have been poisoned to death. No. When I go back, I have to eat all the poisonous flowers and herbs collected from the 1,000 Treasure Pavilion in the south. I have to improve my detoxification ability first. The Wind Lord said in surprise, "Although I heard that there are hidden heavenly talents in the Snow God's palace, I didn't expect them to be so extraordinary. They can even resist the heavenly centipede poison?" The Snow Lady said lightly, "Shuizhan has an extraordinary physique and knows about medicine since he was a child. Besides, he didn't absorb much just now." The Wind Lord shook his head slightly. "You are too modest." The Wind Lord didn't ask anything but looked at Han Fei and said, "The sea-quaking wind bead is not fully formed yet. Throw it away and let it continue to absorb the great Tao of wind." Hearing this, Han Fei threw out the wind bead. At this moment, the Wind Lord said, this Shuizhan actually detonated his heavenly centipede staff. Unfortunately, this person is very strong. It seems that we can't stop him. Han Fei was panting at this moment. It would take a while for the poison in his body to be detoxified. The Snow Lady said, Shuizhan, the sea-quaking wind bead will be fully formed in about 6 hours. During these 6 hours, the wind demons in the violent hurricane will become stronger and stronger. In the end, a dozen half-king realm wind demons may be born. The only advantage is that they won't besiege you together. Can you stop them? The Snow Lady was actually explaining to Han Fei and telling him that it would be safe later. There were only a few half-king realm wind demons. The Wind Lord couldn't help but smile. My little friend Shuizhan, you've helped me a lot this time. Why don't you just take the sea-quaking wind bead for me? The Snow Lady shook her head slightly. I still need some experience. The Snow Lady looked at Han Fei. 6 hours later, once the sea-quaking wind bead is fully formed, the power of the violent hurricane will weaken, and the wind demons will no longer be born. Of course, in addition to the wind demons, there may be strong masters from other immortal palaces coming to compete for the wind bead. It's up to you. Before Han Fei spoke, the Wind Lord laughed. Fine, let the 100 demons or the sea humans fight for the sea-quaking wind bead. I, the Wind Slayer, don't want to join in the fun. The Wind Lord slightly cupped his hands at the Snow Lady. Let's go. The battle is over. I'll take a look around and see if there are other people to save. The Snow Lady bowed slightly. After the Wind Lord left the eye of the storm, the Wind Lord shook his head slightly. A peak level venerable? Do you think I'll believe you? This guy's body has already become a half-king realm cultivator. Bingshu Tian is really good. He really hid his strength well for the land of the fallen king. When only Han Fei and the Snow Lady were left in the eye of the storm, Han Fei said lightly, It's Chen Guangjia's plan. His target is the human heavenly talent. I've almost ruined the plan. But there should be a lot of human venerables in the wind field. I don't know the casualties. The Snow Lady nodded slightly. This is not the first time this kind of thing has happened, but it rarely succeeds. This time there was an accident. I need to go and have a look too. With your strength, you only need to wait for a few hours. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Well, there are only a dozen half-king realm wind demons. The Snow Lady said, It's extremely difficult for wind demons to grow to the half-king level by devouring each other. It's already rare for a dozen half-king realm wind demons to be born in a violent hurricane. You should have hunted a lot of wind demons. It's already a great opportunity for you to get at least 500 wisps of chaotic energy in this trip. Han Fei shrugged slightly and didn't stop the Snow Lady from leaving. Han Fei thought to himself, I've already got more than 1,000 wisps. If there are 7 or 8 more half-king realm wind demons, plus the chaotic energy contained in the wind bead, I can get about 500 wisps of chaotic energy. Thinking of this, Han Fei couldn't wait to have a violent hurricane every day. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1738. Han Fei was the only one left in the entire eye of the storm. Here, it was not affected by the wind and there was no wind at all. The old turtle said, In the wind field, many sea demons have retreated. I don't think many people will compete with you. Han Fei said leisurely, Okay. Then I'll wait for the wind demons. Half an hour later, Han Fei finally saw a half-king realm wind demon. This wind demon didn't even look at Han Fei and rushed to devour the wind bead. Hey, why is your mouth so big? Did I say I would give it to you? Wind was invisible, and the wind demon was just an invisible shadow. He could change his form. But who would have thought that he would turn into a big shark? At this moment, Han Fei turned into a golden giant and broke the wind demon's mouth. 2 hours. 2 hours. 3 hours. When Han Fei killed 8 half-king realm wind demons in a row, he scratched his head and said helplessly, Why didn't anyone come to grab the wind bead? The old turtle said, As I said, most of the sea demons have retreated. That's not right. What about the small part? The old turtle said, The venerable is not a small shrimp. They are not stupid. Knowing that this place is full of danger, why would they come? Han Fei. The 100 demon clan and the human tribe at the bottom of the sea had run away. The people of the wind/sky wouldn't come, and the people of the Bingshuo sky probably wouldn't come either. In addition, the experts of the other immortal palaces nearby might have received the relevant notice, so no one would come again. Han Fei waited until the wind bead was formed and no longer absorbed the wind, then he grabbed the wind bead and stuffed it into Forge the Universe. After doing all this, as soon as Han Fei escaped into the wind field, he met a human expert, who happened to be from the Wind Slasher sect, who was fighting an ordinary wind demon at this moment. When this person saw Han Fei, he was stunned for a moment and said, Greetings, fellow Taoist Snowjean. Han Fei. Han Fei couldn't help but say coldly, Why don't you go to the Eye of the Storm? The man said with a smile, I heard that fellow Taoist Snowjean is guarding the sea-shaking wind bead there. How dare I snatch it from fellow Taoist Snowjean? Han Fei. Han Fei thought to himself, F***ck, am I already so famous? What did the Wind Lord say to Windslayer's men? However, Han Fei didn't care anymore. He quickly left the violent hurricane. Apart from some scattered wind demons, there shouldn't be any other fortuitous opportunities here. The wind on the Great Path was rapidly weakening. It was estimated that this violent hurricane would disappear soon. How many did he kill in this battle? Han Fei had forgotten about it. After finding the old turtle and leaving the violent hurricane, Han Fei entered Forge the Universe. As soon as he entered Forge the Universe, Han Fei sat cross-legged and looked at his information. Owner Han Fei level 89, peak level venerable, vast sea tribe chart 3460564, evolving 7/3 421 days, chaotic energy 2383 strands, mind power 231061, range 120,000 miles, power 23,908 waves, first spiritual pulse unknown, a second spiritual vein unknown, first spiritual beast twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 78, second spiritual beast King Sparrow, level 76, main art Void arrival, level 7 of void fishing, king level, divine quality. In addition to the surge of chaotic energy, Han Fei's soul power had also skyrocketed. The King Sparrow had leveled up again in the past few days, almost catching up with Little Black and Little White. I really don't know how this guy grew up. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? Han Fei didn't swallow the sea-shaking wind pearl immediately, but looked at the gray misty space of the demon purification pot. Time chain, it's time to upgrade. Upgrade. Thousands of chaotic energy were extracted from Han Fei's body at once. The old turtle was speechless. Are you trading with the calabash again? Don't you want to open up the origin sea anymore? Han Fei couldn't help but say, Don't panic. I still have more than 1,000 strands. The old turtle was exasperated. He felt that Han Fei was a spendthrift. He couldn't even have chaotic energy. As long as he had some capital, he had to exchange for something with the calabash. While the time chain was upgraded, Han Fei didn't stay idle. He took out all the sun-moon shells he had hunted this time. Clatter, a large pile of sun-moon shells fell to the ground, 57 in number. With a thought, Han Fei directly opened up a river-like ditch in Forge the Universe. Clatter, the ultra-quality spiritual stones were poured in like a river. After all the ultra-quality spiritual stones were poured in, Han Fei took a deep breath. Before he knew it, he had plundered 5.08 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Yes, even Han Fei himself was shocked by this number. It was the first time in his life that he was so rich. After stuffing more than a dozen big pits in a row, Han Fei finally sorted out all these resources. 1 hour later, Han Fei counted again. Ultra-quality spiritual stones, 5.08 million. Ultra-quality divine weapons, 9,106. High-quality divine weapons, 1,024. Divine weapon level materials, 30657. Sea-quelling bizarre treasure level materials, 567. Elixirs, 286 bottles. Energy fruits, 24398. Other spiritual fruits, 18079. Messy treasure maps, 201. Various cultivation methods and combat skills, 403. In addition, there were some things that were not particularly many, but extremely precious. For example, earth vein spring water, demonic chi essence, and so on, and a small pile. When Han Fei completely sorted out these things, he narrowed his eyes. How can I use so many of them? The old turtle said, there don't seem to be many things that you can use. Han Fei asked, can't I use them to expand the sea? The old turtle said, at least you can build thousands of shields for your tribulation. Maybe you can resist it all the way. Han Fei shook his head slightly. Forget it. Let's swallow this sea-shaking wind pearl first. Han Fei stretched out his hand, and the sea-shaking wind pearl flew to Han Fei's mouth. Han Fei swallowed it without hesitation. To be honest, Han Fei had too many things to eat now. In Han Fei's view, the 200 wisps of chaotic energy in this sea-shaking wind pearl were the most important. Yes, the formed sea-shaking wind pearl only provided 200 wisps of chaotic energy for Han Fei. When the sea-shaking wind pearl entered his mouth, Han Fei felt that a hurricane was blowing in his heart. A green light appeared in his eyes. At that moment, Han Fei seemed to be in the middle of a wind. However, Han Fei was like a kite, rising and falling in the wind. The power of the wind was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, sometimes sharp, sometimes soft, sometimes warm and sometimes cold. And Han Fei, like a kite, was like a fallen leaf, flying and rolling in the wind. Gradually, Han Fei felt like he could control his leaf-like body. It was not until he could move and float freely in the wind that Han Fei felt the force of the wind weaken. It was not until the wind in his heart disappeared that Han Fei slowly woke up from his meditation. As soon as he woke up, Han Fei asked, "Old Yuan, how long did I have an epiphany?" The old turtle said, "You didn't have an epiphany. You just felt the Tao of wind. An hour has passed." "Only an hour?" He looked at the time chain and found that it hadn't been upgraded yet. Han Fei couldn't help but smile bitterly. He felt that he had done a lot of things. But now only 2 hours had passed? Han Fei was still sitting cross-legged, but suddenly a gust of wind blew behind him. Immediately afterward, Han Fei flew up. Swish! Han Fei appeared outside Forge the Universe. He bent his fingers and flicked, and a wind blade swept out. The wind blade cut out the void in an irregular form, cutting out 100 meters and bringing out a large area of wind blades around it. In the end, a void crack was left. Han Fei tapped his feet lightly, and invisible wind condensed into a staircase for Han Fei to walk freely. Han Fei flew out tentatively, but he didn't seem very satisfied this time. Han Fei said, "You've mastered such a Tao, but your speed is only 10% faster?" The old turtle said, "Compared to your current strength, 10% is already very fast. Are you going to be faster than a king now?" Han Fei shrugged. "Maybe." Han Fei was not in a hurry to enter Forge the Universe. With a thought, the illusion of mountains and rivers appeared. The Tree Spirit, Fire Seed, Water Luster, Earth 9, and Punishing Saber appeared. The 5 of them looked at each other and were slightly taken aback. They all said, "Master, what can I do for you?" Han Fei casually threw out the 5 elements he got from Tongwan. Han Fei said, "I got this by accident. Do you think it's useful?" The Water Spirit said, "Although I don't know what it is, this thing is very compatible with my origin. If I refine it, my strength should be quickly improved to the level of an advanced explorer, or even a peak-level explorer." Earth 9 and the others also nodded. "We feel the same way." They seem to be very compatible with our origin. Han Fei glanced at the 5 elements in surprise. In fact, they were 5 floating crystals, and the tree spirit and the others were only intermediate explorers, still far from being peak-level explorers. Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Okay, then I'll let you refine it now. Wait a little longer, and I'll let you out." "Yes, master." When Han Fei entered Forge the Universe again, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Immediately, Han Fei looked at the time chain, and a smile appeared on his face. 32 times, second. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1739. The time acceleration was 32 times, and Han Fei was finally relieved. Originally, Han Fei had always felt that the time acceleration of 16 times was not enough. Now, he could finally complete the bloodline devouring plan before he went to the inner domain. The next day, when Han Fei returned to the Snow God's temple, he caused a lot of commotion as soon as he appeared. This time, no one dared to mess with him anymore. Someone said, "I heard that. Our saint child is very powerful. He killed a half-king in an instant." Someone sneered. "Why? It's said that he can even fight the captain of the Avengers to a draw." Someone was surprised. "Wait, isn't that different from what we heard? How come I heard that they didn't fight?" Someone said, "Alas, they would have fought if they hadn't been afraid of a surprise attack from a half-king. But Han Fei, the Avenger, didn't dare to take action, did he?" Someone sighed. "It's said that Lord Saint Child hid his strength. His real strength is only at the half-king level." Someone exclaimed, "I knew it! He beat us peak-level venerables like chopping melons and vegetables. If he was really a peak-level venerable, how could he be so strong?" Someone else heaved a long sigh. "But he didn't use the means of a half-king. Forget it. The Saint Child must have come to the place where the king died. Otherwise, he would have to hide for a few more years." Han Fei wasn't interested in these remarks. Han Fei felt that as long as he went to the inner domain, he wouldn't return to the ice-snow world. After he returned to his residence, Han Fei saw Bingxue Chuling waiting for him. Han Fei asked casually, "What's the matter?" Bingxue Chuling said, "Thank you for saving my life, Celestial Master." Han Fei waved his hand casually and said, "It's fine. I just helped you. Are you here to thank me?" Bingxue Chuling said, "Master Snow Lady said that the Avenger may not go out on the regular routes in the future. Recently, there have been many major events, and the 13 heavens of the outer domain have begun to strictly guard all the routes." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Got it. I don't plan to take action again in a short time." Bingxue Chuling heaved a sigh of relief. Who knew how many sea monsters had been killed by the Avenger when it appeared in the hurricane? Now, Han Fei's name was probably in the 100 Demons clan and the Martial Emperor city. Besides, Han Fei took Bowie away. In that case, he would most likely die without a doubt. In other words, he had offended all 13 heavens. If Han Fei's identity was exposed in the future, wouldn't he become the enemy of more than half of the 36 Xuantians? Bingxue Chuling said, "Immortal Master, have your entourage and the little girl been in the sea quelling painting the whole time?" "The Snow Maidens asked me to remind the Immortal Master that the sea quelling painting contains too little spiritual energy and Tao, which is not suitable for long-term residence. Of course, this is up to the Immortal Master himself." NN. All of a sudden, Han Fei's eyes widened. "Wait, how do you know about the sea quelling painting? Could it be that there is more than one sea quelling painting?" Bingxue Chuling glanced at Han Fei in surprise. "You don't know, Immortal Master? The sea quelling painting was originally an unparalleled painting, but it was divided into 36 parts at the beginning. Logically speaking, each family has a copy. It's a pity that the immortal palaces are divided into strong and weak ones, and our sea quelling painting eventually fell into the hands of several other families." Wow! Han Fei immediately took a breath. There were indeed 36 parts of the sea quelling painting. He had guessed that there was something wrong with the territory in the sea-quelling painting. It didn't seem to be complete. Only today did he learn the inside story. However, the Life Queen never told him about this. Did the Life Queen not know about the sea-quelling painting? Or did she deliberately not tell him? Han Fei thought, in the future, when I return to the Yin-Yang heaven, I have to talk to my junior sister. Our two families have been neighbors for so many years. Our relationship is better than that of the immortal palaces in the outer domain, right? Is it necessary to keep this a secret? Han Fei thought of something and immediately asked, Is there any strongest academy in the Bingxue heaven? Bingxue Chuling said, Of course there is. However, the Wind Snow Dao Academy was the best. Those who can enter the Wind Snow Academy are all heavenly talent. At least, it's difficult for those below level 7 to enter. With a thought from Han Fei, phantoms of mountains and rivers appeared around him, and Xiao Sei and Nian appeared. As soon as Nian saw Han Fei, she immediately said, Brother, is it safe outside? Han Fei smiled and said, Of course it's safe. Nian, let me send you to a fun place. Stay for half a year, okay? Han Fei sighed inwardly. Although he had promised the time dragon carp that he would take Nian to grow up, Nian was too weak now, and he might encounter danger at any time. He couldn't put her in the sea-quelling painting all the time. Besides, the Snow Lady also said that although she could live in the sea-quelling painting, it was not suitable for cultivation. Besides, Nian knew too little about the outside world, and even less about the ways of the world, so she had to go to a crowded place to adapt. Nian was overjoyed. Where is the fun place? Han Fei smiled leisurely. The school. Nian was going to enter the school, so Han Fei naturally had to give her a lot of instructions. Of course, the most appropriate plan was for Xiao Sei to follow behind to prevent any accident. Half a day later, Han Fei told Xiao Sei and Nian, you can't use the time technique in the school, not even once, understand? Nian nodded. Got it. Han Fei said with a smile, Of course, except for the time technique. You can learn any technique. Body refining techniques, combat skills, soul combat techniques, you can have a look at them all. Also, communicate with your classmates more often. But if someone bullies you, just beat him, just don't kill him. Han Fei rambled on and on. After all, she was still a child. In the end, Han Fei still looked at Xiao Sei worriedly and said, Don't try to change Nian's cognition, nor try to subvert my theory. You just need to be an escort and watch over Nian. Once there is something you can't solve, you can come to me or the Virgin Spirit Saintess. Xiao Sei nodded. Yes, Master Han Fei. Han Fei said, I am now the Holy Child. Xiao Sei nodded. Yes, Master Holy Child. Han Fei wasn't worried about Nian's learning ability at all. After all, she was a time dragon carp. Her natural immortal heritage should be stronger than his. Therefore, whether it was learning techniques or various combat skills, her speed couldn't be slow. In addition, he directly gave Nian and Xiao Sei a lot of resources, which they could squander freely. Anyway, it was only half a year, so they shouldn't squander too much. In any case, children should always go to school, get in touch with the world, and communicate with others. This was growth. More than 4 months later. 12 years had passed in Forge the Universe. At this moment, Forge the Universe had a radius of 3,000 kilometers. This was all the space expanded by the impure spiritual energy left during Han Fei's cultivation. At this moment, on the Ice Lotus, Han Fei had completed more than half of the marrow refining of the pure mystic body. Compared with the indestructible tyrant body, this pure mystic body was much softer. Although it took a long time, it was, after all, a great technique ranked on the 10,000 races in the sea list. Therefore, the speed didn't slow down much. Forging the pure mystic body, Han Fei had reached a new bottleneck, only one step away from the Half-King realm. However, his bloodline devouring would be completed in 33 days. Han Fei thought, I'd better wait a little longer. Otherwise, how embarrassing would it be if I dropped a realm right after breaking through to the Half-King realm? In Forge the Universe, another month passed. On this day, Han Fei suddenly felt refreshed. The first thing he felt was that his body was instinctively devouring energy. Han Fei shouted, "Old Yuan, release a batch of energy for me." The old turtle didn't hesitate and quickly moved away. When a massive amount of energy filled Han Fei's body, which was about 5% of the total energy of the old turtle, Han Fei felt full. At this moment, Han Fei looked at the demon purification pot, and a message popped up. Owner Han Fei level greater than 89, peak level venerable, 10,000 races in the C2720986, chaotic energy greater than 1,583 wisps, spiritual power 241862, perception range greater than 140,000 kilometers, power greater than 27,001 waves, first spiritual heritage unknown. Second spiritual heritage unknown, first spiritual beast twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish level 78, second spiritual beast king sparrow level 76, main art void arrival level 7 of void fishing king level divine quality. Seeing this message, Han Fei seemed to have expected it and wasn't very surprised. The 10,000 races in the sea had increased by about 740,000. His spiritual power had increased by more than 10,000 points because of the upgrade of his bloodline level. This was also thanks to the Taoist patterns he had visualized. His perception range had increased by 20,000 kilometers because of the upgrade of his bloodline. As for his strength, because Han Fei was now at the limit of the peak level venerable. Originally, his strength had been stuck at 26,999 waves when he was in seclusion for 2 months. However, because of the upgrade of his bloodline, this bottleneck was broken again. This meant that if Han Fei wanted to break through to the Demi-King level, he had to continue cultivating. Han Fei's current strength had already surpassed the strength of the old turtle when he was going through the heavenly tribulation. When Han Fei looked at the bloodline information again, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Sure enough, as he expected, he couldn't devour any more. 10,000 races in the C296202223 owner, 2720986, nearby bloodlines, Ancient Azure Dragon, Golden Crow Divine Blood, Time Dragon Carp, Twin Yin-Yang Spirit Swallowing Fish. Recommended bloodlines, none at this point. Han Fei knew that in the Venerable Realm, his bloodline level was probably already extremely high. This could be felt from the speed of his cultivation. Since the demon purification pot didn't recommend it, if he forcibly devoured it, the consequences would be unpredictable. In this case, his bloodline in the Venerable Realm would be fine for now. When he became a Venerable, the upgrade of his life level might also be extraordinary. Third, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1740. After another breakthrough, Han Fei continued to cultivate the pure mystic body and made rapid progress. Previously, it took him 2 months to reach the bottleneck. Now that his life level was further improved, his cultivation speed was even faster. In just 10 days, his power had exceeded 28,000 waves. This speed was amazing. On this day, Han Fei was cultivating. Suddenly, the old turtle said, "Bingxue Chuling is here. It's time to set off." Okay. Swish. Bingxue Chuling was about to call out, when the barrier of Han Fei's ice and snow courtyard was opened. Seeing Han Fei in a white cloak and an ice mask, Bingxue Chuling didn't know if she was hallucinating. She actually dared to feel the pressure of a bloodline level. The man in front of her seemed to be born nobler than her. She even had the urge to be subdued. Seeing Bingxue Chuling stunned, Han Fei asked, "Are we leaving?" Bingxue Chuling came back to herself. "Yes, the families of the 13 outer heavens have gathered. Master Snow Lady will lead the team in person. They will set off tomorrow." Han Fei was surprised. The kings will lead the team? No one will guard the divine palace? Bingxue Chuling said, "Not all the kings of the outer heavens will go on this trip. 7 kings will stay in the 13 outer heavens. The ice and snow heavens have a good relationship with the wind slayer heavens, so the Wind Lord will stay in the outer heavens. Besides, the Divine Palace will activate the array of the Divine Palace. Before Master comes back, the ice and snow heavens will reduce sea exploration activities as much as possible." Bingxue Chuling sighed slightly. "Also, apart from us, the 100 demons, the sea humans, and the mermaids will all go there. After all, the kings of the 36 divine palaces are not the only ones who died in the king grave. There are also sea demons and even giant beasts." Han Fei thought to himself, so, in addition to the various geniuses of the 36 mysterious heavens and the danger of the king perished, there is also the threat of sea demons? Bingxue Chuling nodded. "The king grave opens once every 100 years. All the heavenly talents in the chaotic ocean will go there. That's why Master can leave the ice and snow heavens." Secretly delighted, Han Fei couldn't help but lick his lips. "Interesting. Kings can't enter. Are you sure kings can't sneak in?" Bingxue Chuling glanced at Han Fei in surprise, feeling that he seemed very excited. Bingxue Chuling said, "Theoretically we can. However, the various monarchs were restraining each other, only allowing exalted realm experts to seek fortuitous encounters within. After all, the strongest person that died in the king perished land was only a king. Although there might be some treasures there, it would be of limited use to the various monarchs. However, it's different for venerable ones." Han Fei nodded. "That's good." Bingxue seemed to realize something. Han Fei was the current immortal master of the Yin-Yang heaven. Was there a big difference between such a character and a king? In the violent hurricane last time, even Han Fei's clone could easily strangle a half-king realm powerhouse. If Han Fei really went to the place where the king perished, who could be his opponent? Suddenly, Bingxue realized something. Why did the Snow Lady keep Han Fei here for half a year? Was it really to protect Han Fei? Or did she want to borrow Han Fei's strength? But in any case, the Snow Lady kept Han Fei here and even helped Han Fei go to the place where the king perished, which was a big gift. After hearing Bingxue Chuling's explanation, Han Fei realized something. Han Fei said, "I, Han Fei, owe you a favor. I will protect the people of the Snow God's temple this time. If there is a chance, I will certainly help you." Snow Wind Academy. Nian had been studying here for half a year. When she first came, she really shocked a lot of people. Those who could enter the Snow Wind Academy were all heavenly talent. But when had they ever seen a peak-level law enforcer at the age of 7 or 8? Nian was small, but her strength was not bad at all. More importantly, she was cute and liked to eat. The other students would rarely bully her. Although Nian's strength was high, her classes were with the latest batch of disciples. Among those disciples, some were only great fishing masters, but they were also amazingly talented. Many of these people were about the same age as Nian, but their strength was worlds apart. At first, they didn't dare to talk to Nian, but later they found that Nian was well-behaved and sensible, reading books, eating, and twisting the Rubik's Cube when she was free. Twisting the Rubik's Cube became the first step for Nian to socialize, which attracted a lot of attention. Under Nian's diligent education, she soon became good friends with a group of half-grown children. Xiao Sei was naturally happy to see such a scene. Ever since he first met Nian, he had never seen her smile so cheerfully. However, when she walked out of the abyssal chasm with Han Fei, she was happy almost every day. Even in the sea-quelling painting, there were so many small animals playing with her, and she was also happy. 5 months later, Nian was no longer the little girl who knew nothing. At least, she knew the structure of this ice and snow world. She knew the difference between villages, towns, and main cities. She also cultivated and went shopping with her friends. She even secretly ran to the village with another little girl. The reason was that when the little girl heard that her parents were bullied, Nian stood up for her. She followed her to the village, and almost slapped the whole family out of existence. The family was so scared that they knelt on the ground and begged for mercy on the spot. Later, when they returned to the Wind Snow Dao Academy, Nian naturally had to be punished with them, which made the teacher so angry that his beard flew up. The two of them were taught a good lesson. These were just small interludes in the story. This was the nature of children. Back then, Han Fei wasn't much better than Yin. In fact, he was even worse. After all, when Han Fei first came here, this world was completely new to him and had too many attractions. On this day, Nian was not cultivating, because she didn't need to cultivate at all now. Other people cultivated cultivation methods while she only cultivated combat skills. Near noon, Nian dragged a little girl who was about the same age as her, and the two of them set up a grill in the house. Nian said, "Little Tan, let's have barbecue at noon." Little Tan was still a little hesitant. Nian last time we had barbecue, we were caught by the teacher and were punished to cultivate in seclusion for 3 days. Are you sure it's okay this time? Nian giggled. It's okay. I went to the academy to find a few books on arrays. Look, Nian took out an ultra-quality spiritual stone, controlled the spiritual energy around the room with the means of a spirit gatherer, and set up a crooked concealment array. Seeing this scene, Han Fei couldn't help but be speechless. Han Fei looked at Xiao Sei and asked, "Who introduced this spirit gatherer to her?" Xiao Sei looked embarrassed. "Little Master came to ask me, so I let her attend a few spirit gatherer classes." Han Fei was speechless. "You are also a venerable. Nian is so talented, but you taught her to be like this? Is this a concealment array?" She just used spiritual energy to build an array. Now, this array has been set up, but her room is full of spiritual energy. She just wants to tell the whole school that she barbecued here. Puff, Bingxue Chiliang couldn't help laughing. She thought to herself, your baby sister has made a lot of jokes at school. Last time, she made a hot pot. There was water in the pot, a fire was lit below, and the fish was swimming in the pot. She said the fish was not cooked. A lot of people burst into laughter. Sure enough, not long after Nian set up this concealment array, a white-bearded teacher shouted, "Han Nian come out. Do you think your family is rich? In broad daylight, there is a spiritual energy light shield above your head. What? Do you think you are not bright enough?" In the room, Little Tan sighed. "Sure enough, I've been discovered again." And Nian suddenly got up, quickly put away the barbecue grill, and said, "Run. Everyone." Han Fei finally couldn't stand it anymore. With a swish, he closed the concealment array, inhaled the spiritual energy into his body, and appeared in front of the house. Nian had just come out. When she saw Han Fei, she was shocked. "Brother? Beautiful sister." Nian had seen Han Fei wearing a mask, so she knew it was Han Fei. As soon as she turned her head, she saw an old man who was an advanced explorer, rushing over angrily. However, when the old man saw Bingxue Chiliang and the masked Han Fei, he was immediately shocked. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The old man immediately bowed and said, "Greetings, Your Excellency Holy Girl and Your Excellency Holy Child." The old man was shocked. Why are these two here? When the old man looked at Nian again, thinking of Nian's terrifying talent, he immediately took a breath of cold air. "Is it possible that Your Excellency Holy Child and Holy Girl are already married and pregnant with a daughter?" This discovery made old man Ming Du's heart tremble. This kind of thing must be kept secret. If this was revealed, God knew how much trouble it would cause. Han Fei said, "My younger sister is not very sensible. Thank you for taking care of her in the past 6 months." Younger sister? Younger sister? Ming Du secretly breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, is it really as simple as a younger sister? However, he still bowed and said, Thank you, Your Excellency, Holy Child. Nian Er's talent is really amazing. She can make a breakthrough and transcend her tribulation at any time. I'm so proud to have such a talent in the ice and snow heaven. Han Fei said lightly, Sir, I'm taking Nian Er with me today. The old man thought to himself, Nian Er has only been here for a year. Although Nian Er doesn't know many things, she is very popular with the teachers. Why are you leaving now? Bingxue Chiling also said in surprise. Are you taking Nian Er with you? Han Fei said, yes. When Nian Er heard that she was leaving, she was a little reluctant. Brother, are you leaving so soon? Nian Er has just made friends. Han Fei smiled gently. Nian Er, if there is a chance in the future, we will come back. Nian Er couldn't help looking at her little friend. Although she was reluctant, if Han Fei was leaving, she had to go too. Nian Er thought for a long time, took out her barbecue grill, and threw it on the ground. Little Tan, I'm leaving. When you are hungry, use it for barbecue. Chapter 1741. If Han Fei left the Snow God's temple, he would not leave Nian Er behind. For Han Fei, the road ahead might be different every day. Who knew what would happen? Furthermore, even though the Snow Lady had expressed her friendliness towards him, their relationship hadn't reached the point of trust yet. The Snow Lady was willing to help him for her own reasons. What Han Fei had to do was to accept the exchange of interests calmly. The next day, the Snow Maidens left the Celestial Palace with 22 Grand Monarchs, the Holy Child, and the Holy Daughter. A total of 24 powerful beings boarded the ship and headed for the inner realms. Among the 24 people, only one was a peak advanced venerable one. Among the rest, except for Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling, who were acknowledged to have reached the half-king realm, there were only 2 other half-king realm experts. The reason why there were very few half-monarch realm experts going was because once they reached the half-monarch realm, they would only think about transcending the tribulation. If one was lucky, one could indeed obtain many fortuitous opportunities in the land where the king perished. However, to directly obtain the opportunity to become a king, the king's grave was not enough. Most of the half-king realm powerhouses were waiting for the opening of another super-secret realm. That was the place where they dreamed of becoming kings. Therefore, the group of people sent by the Snow God Palace could be said to be extremely strong. Han Fei was amazed. If the 36 mysterious heavens all brought out such a lineup, then there would be at least more than 600 peak-level venerables participating in the Battle of the King Grave. And this was only the human side. How many people from the 100 Demon tribe, the Sea Humans, the Merfolk tribe, and even the Giant tribe would participate? In this way, there seemed to be over 2,000 Exalt realm experts participating in the King Perished. Han Fei had fought many battles himself, but how many peak-level venerables would die in this battle? How could these kings be willing to part with their treasures? Han Fei was standing at the bow of the ship with his hands behind his back, giving everyone the impression that he was extremely powerful. Hearing the voice behind him, Han Fei didn't look back but said lightly, "What's the casualty rate in the place where the king died?" Bingxue Chuling replied, "Usually around 30%. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Even 30% is already a lot. This meant that in this battle, nearly 1/3 of the powerhouses would fall. The price he had to pay was huge, but to become a king? It might not be enough. The land of King Perished could only be said to be a place where one could become a king. Perhaps those who were fated would be able to obtain it. Even if there was a great opportunity there, it would probably be extremely difficult to obtain. However, since even a half-martial monarch expert went there, it meant that there should be fortuitous encounters for half-martial monarchs to fight for in this place. Bingxue Chuling said, "Teacher is calling for you." Han Fei smiled. Sure enough, he knew it wouldn't be so simple. The ship Han Fei took was named the Snow God, which was named after the Immortal Palace. This also proved that this was the carriage of a king. The ship was made entirely from the bones of a half-monarch realm cultivator. There were even traces of King Great bones in many places. Based on the arrangement of this ship, it was probably the ship with the strongest ice and snow penetration. It was more than 200 meters long and had 3 levels. The Snow Maidens resided on the highest level, and it was like a miniature palace of ice and snow. When Han Fei entered the door, the Snow Maidens were reading a thick book covered with frost. Seeing Han Fei come in, she said lightly, "You should have guessed. The land of King Perished seems to be a little different." Han Fei went straight to the table and nodded slightly. "If it's just to become a half-martial monarch, then it's meaningless for half-martial monarchs to go there." The Snow Maidens looked at Han Fei and asked, "How much do you know about what happened back then?" Han Fei asked, "Are you talking about the secret realm you once went to?" Seeing the Snow Maidens nod, Han Fei said, "Basically nothing. I only know that it was an obstacle on your eastbound route. The things there made you willing to stay there and fight for them." The Snow Maidens smiled lightly. "It seems that you do know very little. Half-martial monarchs go to the land of King Perished, not to fight randomly. The half-martial monarchs who were chosen to go to the land of King Perished only to get one thing." Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. "What?" The Snow Maidens said, "The key to the Imperial Palace." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "The Imperial Palace?" The Snow Maidens pushed the thick snow book in front of her to Han Fei. Han Fei didn't ask much, but turned the book over and glanced at it. After a while, even his breathing became slightly rapid. Because the Snow Maidens were here, the old turtle didn't say a word. But even if the old turtle didn't say it, Han Fei knew that this secret was a bit big. It turned out that after old Han and the others, the 36 Black Heavens had experienced more than one treasure-hunting trip. In the end, they confirmed that the place was an imperial palace. Yes, if Han Fei didn't know what an emperor was, he did. An emperor, one step higher than that, would become a god. The martial emperor city could stand proudly in the chaotic ocean for so many years just because of the legend of the emperor. In that true emperor palace, there was the inheritance of the emperor monarch. It was no wonder that these people would rather stay in this small place and not advance than leave this place. This snow book recorded that it was actually not difficult to enter the imperial palace. If there were tokens of the imperial palace, their safety would be greatly improved. The more tokens, the better the quality, and the safer they would be when they went to the imperial palace in the future. And the place where the kings died, for ordinary people, was an opportunity to become half-king. However, for half-king, it was an opportunity to explore the imperial palace. And exploring the imperial palace represented an opportunity to become a king. The Snow Maidens said, "According to the part of the imperial palace that we have explored so far, it should be less than 30% of the entire imperial palace. The more we explore," Han Fei whispered, "less than 30% has created hundreds of kings." The Snow Maiden said indifferently, "Yes, this is what we know. But I don't know how many kings it has created. You should know that we are all old. The level of human bloodline and the internal injuries left by the king's scuffles will actually shorten our lifespan. Therefore, we won't act rashly. However, before we perish, we still have to explore that place." Han Fei narrowed his eyes and said, "What about reincarnation or possession?" The Snow Maiden said, "You should know that if you want to cultivate reincarnation, you should try not to let your memories awaken. Otherwise, it will be difficult to walk the path of cultivation. Besides, to cultivate reincarnation, you have to divide your fate. If you do it too many times, will the reincarnation be yours, or are you the reincarnation? It's hard to say. As for possession, you can live another life at most. And before that, many of the kings had already possessed bodies when they were still in the venerable realm. It's the same for humans and sea demons. No one is better than anyone else." Han Fei said leisurely, "So, now you want to keep sending people to explore the imperial palace and cultivate new kings." The Snow Maidens said, "You just came out of the wilderness, so there are some things you don't know. Do you know why the chaotic ocean is divided into the inner and outer heavens? Han Fei wondered why. The Snow Maidens said, because each of the inner heavens has more than one king. Han Fei's body trembled. More than one king? Does this mean that there are at least 26 kings in the inner heavens? The Snow Maidens said, every 100 years, the land of the king grave will open. Every 3,000 years, the imperial palace will be explored. Why does it take such a long time? Even the venerables of the major immortal palaces will die. If the casualty rate in the land of the king grave is about 30%, then the probability of death in the imperial palace is as high as 80%. Besides, the exploration of the imperial palace will only become more and more difficult. This means that it will be more and more difficult to become a king in the imperial palace. Han Fei was silent for a moment and asked, how long until the imperial palace opens? The Snow Maiden said leisurely, 32 years. Han Fei chuckled. Don't tell me. You have to go on this trip too? The Snow Maidens shook her head slightly. We won't go on this trip. But I'm not sure about the next one. Han Fei asked, so, I may be the strongest person on this trip? The Snow Maidens nodded. Yes. That's why I want to help you. Han Fei was silent for a moment and said, what if I transcend the tribulation and become a king in these 32 years? The Snow Maidens paused for a moment. Then, maybe you won't be able to go either. Han Fei sneered in his heart. You won't be able to go as a king? It means that I'm afraid that you will find a greater opportunity. However, if the imperial palace opens, wouldn't I be stupid if I didn't go? The chances of survival in the imperial palace are slim, but I'm not a salted fish or cabbage. There were 32 years left before the opening of the Dharch Palace. His current bloodline level was already so high, and he had accumulated so many resources. If he were to try again later, he might not have a 95% success rate, but he should have a 94% success rate. No matter how he looked at it, he couldn't wait for more than 30 years to become a king. Han Fei thought to himself, maybe for the Snow Maidens, 32 years is enough for me to grow a little or resist the tribulation. However, to him, these 32 years were equivalent to 1,000 years of time. How can I waste my time? Han Fei immediately said, in any case, I will protect the people of the Snow God's temple in the place where the king died this time. But if I compete with other half-kings for treasures, I won't be able to help them. The Snow Maidens said straightforwardly, the 24 people who will go this time will rely on their efforts. With your help, it shouldn't be a problem to get 20 keys to the imperial palace. The so-called keys are actually objects with the aura of the imperial palace. If you see them, you will recognize them at a glance. Han Fei thought, it's just 20 tokens. I can rob them even if I have to. It's not a big deal. So Han Fei nodded. Okay, I'll do it. As for the opening of the imperial palace in 32 years, it's too early now. I didn't come out of the wilderness to participate in the exploration of the secret realm of the imperial palace. The Snow Maidens nodded. That's fine. Let's talk about the future. Let's settle the matter in front of us for now. Chapter 1742. Han Fei quite appreciated the Snow Girl's bet this time. For the Snow Girl, she just did a small thing, but she did Han Fei a big favor. The Snow Girl's purpose was simple. This trip to the land of the king grave was nothing more than to fight for more places for the Snow God's temple to go to the imperial palace. However, for Han Fei, the places had already been reserved. Not only had the places been reserved, but this trip to the land of the king grave was also a hunt. He upgraded the time chain with 1,000 wisps of chaotic energy, and now he only had 1,000 wisps of chaotic energy left. Although 1,000 wisps were a lot, it was definitely not a lot for a heavenly talent who had become a king. After all, a half-king that Han Fei met could hide hundreds of wisps in his body. If they were to fight, he wouldn't have much chaotic energy left. Han Fei thought to himself, I can't be restricted by the chaotic energy when I expand my origin sea. Not long after Han Fei and the Snow Girl secretly discussed, the Snow God teleported and seemed to appear on a wide route. Han Fei didn't continue his seclusion at this moment. 8 big ships suddenly appeared in his field of vision. Judging from the shape and sails of these big ships, they didn't come from the same place. They must be the ships of the immortal palaces of the 13 outer heavens heading to the inner area. These big ships dropped the anchor and seemed to be waiting for all the big ships of the 13 outer heavens to gather. Swish, swish, swish. The moment the Snow God appeared, 3 or 4 senses swept over. Those who were able to use their senses in front of the Snow Maidens were undoubtedly all king tiers. There was a man in a red robe whose blood seemed to be dissipating. This man's voice was very low. "Snow Girl, how have you been?" Seeing that Han Fei was dumbfounded, Bingxue Chuling said, "This is Palace Master Yen, one of the Blood Evil Heaven. He is relatively powerful among the 13 outer heavens." On the other side, a man carrying a sledgehammer nodded at the Snow Girl. "Since you're here, Ling Feng won't come, right?" The Snow Girl nodded. "After all, he's fast. But if something happens, he will take care of it. There shouldn't be any delay." Han Fei thought to himself, "This must be the Lord of Thunder and Fire. His style is so obvious that I can't be wrong." Bingxue Chuling said, "You should know him. He's the Lord of Lightning Fire, Lei Qing." The weapon on his body was the strongest weapon of the 13 heavens, the heaven-shaking thunder hammer. It was said that this hammer was the only weapon in the 36 profound heavens that could touch the threshold of a divine weapon. But as for the specifics, I've only heard it from others. Only the Lord of Lightning and Fire himself should know. Han Fei frowned. A weapon that touched the threshold of a divine weapon? That hammer must be extraordinary. As expected of the immortal palace whose main business was refining. Humph! Suddenly Han Fei felt a gaze. Following the gaze, he saw a red-haired middle-aged man. This person's eyes were cold and unfriendly, and his face was cold and stern as he stared at Han Fei. Since they were on their own ship, Bingxue Chuling was not afraid that other kings would eavesdrop on them. She continued, "This is the palace master of the Avalon of 5 elements. His name is Gongzhan, and his innate spiritual beast is a 5-elemental dragonfish. Although the 2 5-element wheels were mid-grade sea-quelling bizarre treasures, they were battle weapons. The Avalon of 5 elements has always been belligerent." Gongzhan looked at Han Fei. "Snow Girl, this must be your new disciple, Shuizhan, right? Judging from his demeanor, it seems that he's the king of your snow god's palace?" At this moment, Han Fei was standing at the bow of the ship with his hands behind his back and an ice mask on his face. He indeed didn't look like an ordinary person. Snow Girl said, "Shuizhan has always been like this. Or rather, the people of the snow and ice heaven have always been like this. It's not the first time you've heard this." Gongzhan chuckled. "Of course I know. People of the snow and ice heaven are indifferent. It's said that on that day in the violent hurricane, my disciple asked for your Shuizhan's help, but he was turned down and sent to the Avenger, Han Fei. What a clean cut!" Han Fei couldn't help but look up at Gongzhan without speaking. This kind of person just liked to pick a fight. If it were in the past, Han Fei would have yelled at him for 300 rounds. However, he was now Shuizhan, an extremely indifferent person. So, a war of words? That was obviously not suitable for him. However, he could still throw a disdainful look at Gongzhan. Because Han Fei's mask was very close to his face, his eyes could also convey his thoughts. When Han Fei glanced at him, Gongzhan's face changed slightly. Behind Gongzhan, someone looked even more awful and shouted, "Holy child Shuizhan! How dare you disrespect the king? Do you want to spar with me?" Han Fei was indifferent, but he also retorted, "You don't deserve it." The venerables of the Avalon of 5 elements were furious. Even Gongzhan was confused. How inflated was the soul ball's heart? "My disciple doesn't deserve it? Who do you think you are?" Han Fei thought to himself. Snow Girl said, "This is not a war. Just bear with it. Who can be your match in the land of King Death?" However, at this moment, with a buzz, a large ship full of spiritual plants broke through the void and arrived. As soon as the ship appeared, a pleasant voice said, "We're all from the 13 outer heavens. You're weaker than us. Why are you fighting with each other?" In the next moment, a flower fairy-like character appeared from a pile of flowers. She was wearing a light green dress made of intertwined flower stems. A small jade vine was wrapped around one of her arms. That was nothing, in terms of beauty. This woman was even more beautiful than the Snow Girl and could compete with the Life Queen. However, the Life Queen was indifferent. The one from the 100 Flowers Palace was a bit more enchanting. Bing Shui Chuling said, "This is the master of the 100 Flowers Palace, Hua Qianyue. Her spiritual plant is the Misty Beauty Beard, and her weapon is the Jade Fairy Vine. The master of the 100 Flowers Palace is among the top 5 in the 13 outer heavens." Han Fei didn't shy away and still looked at him indifferently. Han Fei had seen a lot of beautiful women, so he was not attracted by the master of the 100 Flowers Palace. He just looked at her. Huh! Hua Qianyue glanced at Han Fei and chuckled. "Sister Snow Girl, I heard that you accepted a new disciple. He should be very talented, but I'm afraid he's a bit dull." The Snow Girl bowed slightly. "I'm sorry, Sister Qianyue." Hua Qianyue had only just appeared to greet everyone when she saw another 3 ships breaking through the void and approaching. On one of the big ships, an old man in a black robe, holding a withered wooden staff, smiled. "Sorry to keep you waiting. I went to the god refining heaven by the way. Su Lian was supposed to come, but Su Lian often cultivates in seclusion, so I did it for him. Since everyone is here, it seems that it's time to go." Han Fei was lost for words. The other kings all looked like young girls, but why did the unique one look like an old man? Bing Shui Chuling said, "This is Master Huang Jie of the 10,000 Poison Heaven, known as the Myriad Poison Ancestor. His spiritual beast is the 7 ultimate ancient insect, which is known as the most poisonous in the 36 heavens. His sea-quelling bizarre treasure, the Myriad Poison Staff, is said to contain 100,000 kinds of poisons." Han Fei thought, "I can see that. This old man's face is not normal at all. I feel that he's going to poison me to death." Suddenly, Bing Shui Chuling said, "The 10,000 Poison Heaven and the Medicine King Heaven have always been at odds. The fight between the 2 families was not something that happened in a day or 2. The 10,000 Poison Heaven should have been able to enter the inner domain, but because some kings died, they didn't go. They are one of the 13 heavens in the outer realms that should not be provoked." Han Fei felt a headache. Every restaurant had its own specialties. Needless to say, this old man must have a lot of poisons. During the seclusion in the Snow God's temple, because of the pure mystic body, he had reached a bottleneck in the peak level of the venerable realm, and his bloodline level hadn't made a breakthrough yet. At that time, Han Fei ate all kinds of poisonous flowers and plants. Han Fei knew very well that those who played with poisons were a group of terrifying guys. Ever since he was young, he had been fighting against poison and had never stopped. During the seclusion in the Snow God's temple, he swallowed more than 3,000 poisonous flowers, plants, and fruit. Now, seeing this old man from the 10,000 Poison Heaven, Han Fei wondered how he could get some poisons from there. Perhaps Han Fei's eyes fell on Huang Jie's eyes. Huang Jie was also surprised. "Why does this kid keep looking at me?" So Huang Jie said, "I heard that you recruited a saint child, Snow Lady? It must be him." The next moment, Han Fei spoke for the first time. "I'm Shuizhan. Nice to meet you, Palace Master Huang Jie." Huang Jie was stunned for a moment. He had always been a weirdo in the eyes of others. Over here, there was clearly an air of hostility. Could it be that everyone was saluting in this snow battle? Huang Jie didn't think too much but nodded slightly to show that he had. At this point, all the big ships of the outer domain had arrived. Among them, the 100 Flowers Palace, the 10,000 Poison Heaven, the Snow God's Temple, the 5 Elements Heaven, the Thunder Fire Heaven, and the Blood Evil Heaven were all led by kings. The conflict between Han Fei and the 5 Elements was also interrupted by the arrival of the 100 Flowers Palace and the 10,000 Poison Heaven. Only then did everyone stop arguing and set off. Because there were 6 kings on the ship, and the ship was filled with experts. Even high-rank exalted realm experts were rare. Therefore, it was almost impossible for pirates to attack them on the route they took. In fact, to put it bluntly, even if all 10 pirate crews were to come, the experts here would still be able to put up a fight. Han Fei inquired about it and found that it would take about 25 days to get to the inner domain. During such a long time, of course, he couldn't lie on the side of the ship and watch the water every day, so Han Fei sealed a separate room in the cabin and went to forge the universe to cultivate. Half a month later, when Han Fei was feeling the pleasure brought by the growth of his strength, he suddenly heard the old turtle say, "We've arrived at the mist sea outside. This should be the land of chaos that isolates the inner and outer seas." Chapter 1743. Han Fei wanted to see how the inner and outer waters of the chaotic Azure Sea were divided. When he came out of the cabin and came to the deck, he found that it was so dark that he couldn't even see his own fingers. Outside the ship, chaotic and mottled spiritual energy was raging. It was comparable to the environment in a cage, or even worse. The illusions here were not only violent, but the fog particles seemed to be quite heavy. They were called fog because they appeared like fog. But in fact, if one looked carefully, it was not all fog. Some were gravel, some were water droplets, and some were the residue of crushed seaweed. Why were they floating in the air? Also, there was a very intuitive phenomenon here. The gravity here was more than 10 times heavier than the outside world. Under such gravity, would there be such a phenomenon of floating? Han Fei scanned with his perception and found that his perception range was only about 1,200 kilometers. Any further and he couldn't go further. Han Fei asked in surprise, "The perception range is only 1%? The old turtle said, "The space here is better." In other words, the space here is stronger. In other places you can cut a crack in the void with a knife, but not here. You need to use 10 times the strength to be able to crack the void. The higher the space, the stronger the power of the Great Path. The power of the Great Path suppresses your perception, so you feel that your perception range is extremely small. Han Fei was puzzled. "You mean that the space here is much stronger than where we are usually?" The old turtle said, "That's obvious. This kind of powerful space power is several times stronger than the space in the Age of Gods. It can be seen that this is definitely an ancient land." "An ancient land?" The old turtle said, "The stronger the power of the Great Path contained in a world, the more stable this space is. If you are in the outside world, you can cut 10,000 kilometers with a knife. Then, in this stable space, you can only cut 1,000 kilometers. It's not that your strength has become weaker, but the strength of this space has become stronger. Although I don't know what's in this fog. I don't think it's very simple." Han Fei shook his head slightly and said, "So many kings haven't found out the reason after tens of thousands of years. Even if I have a navigator, I don't have time to find out the mystery. Besides, didn't you say that this place is extremely dangerous?" The old turtle said, "That's true. The creatures that could survive here, regardless of their cultivation level, at the very least, their physiques should not be weak. After all, the spatial structure here was dozens of times stronger than other places. If you cultivate here for a long time, you will be able to temper your physique." Han Fei chatted with the old turtle for a while, and found that someone was fishing. At this moment, the man raised the hook and a big fish came out of the water. Since he had never seen this kind of fish before, he strolled over to have a look. Seeing Han Fei coming out, someone immediately saluted and said, Greetings, Lord Holy Child. Han Fei nodded slightly. Please continue. And in Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name levitating fish. Introduction. A rare fish species that lives in places with a lot of levitating stones. This fish enters the sea during the day and floats in the air at night to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The levitating fish were proficient in spatial power, and they were able to tear through space or create spatial blades to attack their opponent. The levitating fish stone was born in the sky and had the ability to fly. Level 79 quality. Rare spiritual energy greater than 89,658 points. Edible effect. Long-term consumption can increase one's chi and blood and increase one's explosive power. Collectible levitating stone. Absorbable levitating stone? Han Fei was slightly taken aback. This fish could grow levitating stones? That was a bit strange. After walking around, Han Fei took out his fishing rod and caught a levitating fish. The knife light cut through the fish's head and cut out a levitating stone. Han Fei knew what a levitating stone was. It was a delicate jade-like stone dug out of a fish's head. Generally speaking, it was shaped like a heart and was as hard as a stone after it dried up. It was sparkling and translucent like jade. However, it was the first time that Han Fei had seen a levitating stone. This stone was enough to serve as a levitating stone for several fishing boats. Han Fei injected spiritual energy into it. In an instant, the levitating stone was filled, and its conductivity was more than 10 times that of ordinary levitating stones. Wow! Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. Is the conductivity so high? Doesn't it mean that the speed of the wind god boat can be increased by more than 10 times? Of course, with the speed of the wind god boat, even if it was 10 times faster, it could only travel more than 600,000 kilometers a day. Even if it was engraved with various arrays, it could only travel about 800,000 kilometers a day. Naturally, such a speed wasn't attractive to Exalted Realm experts at all. If it was only for explorers or below, this levitating stone would be very valuable. Unfortunately, since this kind of fish was a rare species, it could not be found all over the sea. Thinking about it, it could only be found in this foggy sea. Han Fei put away the levitating stone. As for this fish, when he was free, he would have a hot pot for it. Just when Han Fei was about to go back to seclusion, he perceived that on the big ship of the 10,000 Poison Heaven, a group of people were refining poison openly. Han Fei was fascinated, because the poisonous smoke produced by the poison was quite strong. So, they simply refined it outside. The dark green poison made Han Fei want to go up and have a taste, but he felt his blood freeze. Perhaps because Han Fei was in a trance, he was seen by Huang Jie from the 10,000 Poison Heaven. Huang Jie said, "Little friend Shuizhan, are you interested in refining poison?" Hearing this, Han Fei immediately came back to his senses and bowed slightly. "I don't know much about pharmacology, but I once ate a spiritual insect by mistake, and since then I have some resistance to poison." "You can resist any poison?" Han Fei thought to himself, the heaven spirit detoxifying insect may be precious, but it shouldn't be so precious. Others may be afraid of poison, but Han Fei wasn't. If he could ask old Huang Jie for some poison as a holy child, it would be a good idea. Han Fei nodded slightly and said, "I think so." Huang Jie was a little surprised. In the chaotic ocean, there are only 3 kinds of things that can resist any poison. One is the 1,000 poison lotus seed, one is the 9 poison treasure silkworm, and the other is the heaven spirit detoxifying insect. Since you ate the spiritual insect, is it colorful? Han Fei was surprised that this old man immediately mentioned the name of the heaven spirit detoxifying insect. Immediately, Han Fei said, "It's not colorful, but golden." Huang Jie was slightly surprised. "It seems that you are lucky to have encountered the most difficult heaven spirit detoxifying insect in the chaotic ocean. Come to my ship and have a chat." I'll do as you say. Han Fei didn't expect Huang Jie to be so straightforward. He didn't put on any airs at all and just let Han Fei go. Han Fei's figure flashed, breaking through the void. The snow girl glanced at him, and wondered why he went to the big ship of the 10,000 Poison Heaven. Bingxue Chuling and the snow girl were in the same room. At this moment she said in surprise, "Master," the snow girl said lightly, "It's okay. Although Huang Jie is a little eccentric, he is not that kind of bloodthirsty and sinister person. It's just that he cultivates poison." On the big ship of the 10,000 Poison Heaven, a group of venerables were surprised to see the holy child of the snow god's temple. They were all dumbfounded. "Why is he on our ship?" Swish! As soon as the ship opened, old Huang Jie knocked on the door and said, "Come in." The venerables looked up at Huang Jie in surprise. The palace master had always been indifferent to others and was unwilling to make friends with people from other immortal palaces. Why did he ask a junior to come on board this time? However, Han Fei didn't meet these venerables but went directly to Huang Jie's cabin. As soon as he entered Huang Jie's cabin, Han Fei saw that the whole cabin was full of all kinds of bottles and jars, as well as all kinds of poisonous herbs and fruits, and even the smell was highly toxic. The moment Han Fei entered the cabin, the color of his skin began to change slightly. However, the powerful detoxification effect of the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect made the essence blood in Han Fei's body crazily devour and analyze these poisons. Huang Jie stared at Han Fei for a few seconds before he chuckled. "Interesting. Boy, you've eaten a lot of poisons before, haven't you? The Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect has always been fragile. If you can keep it alive and feed it with all kinds of poisons, it can be said that no one in the sea expansion realm can poison you to death. And you, boy, can even integrate the power of the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect into your body? That's rare, but how did you do it?" Han Fei didn't hide anything. The other party was a master of the 10,000 poison sect. If he bragged, he would be easily seen through. He had a purpose, so there was no harm in being honest. Han Fei said, "When I was going through the tribulation, the fourth lightning transformed my body and injected the power of the spiritual insect into my body." Of course, Han Fei found an excuse and made it up. However, as long as it had something to do with the heavenly tribulation, it was not easy to be exposed. Huang Jie raised his eyebrows. "Oh? The fourth heavenly tribulation is the 4-9 Kings tribulation? The Snow God's temple is indeed hiding its secret. It's interesting that the heavenly tribulation can integrate the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect into your body. However, it's a pity that your knowledge of poison is too shallow. Just the smell in my cabin can make you react, which shows that your ability to resist poison is limited. You may be able to resist poison, but only a little. Besides, you can't resist the poison of the sea expansion realm. Even the poison of the venerable realm can't resist it." Han Fei frowned slightly. "Am I so bad?" Huang Jie smiled disdainfully. "I've been playing with poison for tens of thousands of years. I can see through you at a glance. Your only advantage is that you have inherited the characteristics of the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect. In the 36 Black Heavens there is no one who can do this. What a pity! You are a disciple of the Snow God's temple. I may be able to give you some poison, but no more help will be enough." Chapter 1744. For the kings of the 10,000 Poison Heaven, Han Fei was just a heavenly talent in the ice and snow heaven and had nothing to do with them. Therefore, Huang Jie wouldn't give Han Fei more advice. This was a matter of course. Huang Jie was well aware of this, and so was Han Fei. Therefore, when Huang Jie said that he could give him a few poisons, Han Fei knew that it was impossible to get a big opportunity from Huang Jie. Han Fei was proficient in many things, but he had never been interested in using poison. Even though he had used something like the Poison King in the past, in the eyes of the true Tao of poison, it was probably not a poison at all. Besides, Han Fei didn't refine the Poison King himself, but Chao Qiu. He just tricked Chao Qiu into coming here. Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. Thank you for your kindness, Senior. However, if I may ask, if I want to know how to make full use of the advantages of this body, what direction should I work towards? What price do I need to pay? Although Han Fei was not good at using poison and his body's ability to resist poison was limited, Han Fei knew that his ability was quite extraordinary. He didn't pay much attention to it before because there were very few poison users in the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven. Those who could walk the path of poison were few and far between. In fact, the reason why there were so few poison cultivators was that those who didn't practice poison well were basically poisoned to death. Few of them could live long. That was why Han Fei was so interested in using poison at this moment. He might be able to defeat all his enemies in the future, but if someone could kill him with poison, wouldn't he be doomed? Oh? Are you negotiating with me? Huang Jie's lips curled into a sinister smile. Han Fei said lightly, I have to ask. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a pity to waste your talent for nothing? Ha ha. The Ice and Snow Heaven has never had anything to do with the 10,000 Poison Heaven. If I want to cooperate with someone, I'll look for the Snow Girls. Why should I look for you? Han Fei smiled faintly. The major palaces always have a purpose in going to the land of the King Grave. The 10,000 Poison Heaven is no exception. Is the key to the Imperial Palace enough? Huang Jie narrowed his eyes slightly. The matter of the Imperial Palace was not a secret. In any case, all the half-monarchs who went to the land of the fallen monarchs knew about it. Even some of the peak venerables knew about it. However, Han Fei took this matter as a condition for negotiation? This piqued Huang Jie's interest. Huang Jie said, Oh, tell me about it. What I need is guidance on how to fight against poison. It just so happens that this junior's strength isn't bad. Perhaps I can get more keys to the Dharch Palace from the place where King perished. Huang Jie snorted. Do you think I'll believe you just because you say so? It's fine for young people to be a little conceited, but they absolutely cannot be arrogant. Han Fei said casually, I'm not in a hurry. If there's a chance later, I'll take the key and ask you again. Huang Jie scrutinized Han Fei. After a few seconds he said, Take off your mask. Hearing that, Han Fei thought to himself, my God-deceiving precious technique shouldn't be seen through. Even if he saw through it, as long as he didn't reveal his true appearance, he wouldn't be able to see through it with a single glance. So Han Fei reached out and grabbed the mask. The face under the mask was Zhang Xuanyu's face. Anyway, it wasn't the first time that Han Fei had used Zhang Xuanyu's face, so it didn't matter if he used it one more time. Huang Jie clicked his tongue. You look quite handsome. Why do you wear a mask? Han Fei put the mask back on his face. To isolate the love of the world and pursue the supreme Tao. No one knew whether Huang Jie believed Han Fei's nonsense or not. He said, Since you have fused with the power of the heaven spirit detoxifying insect, you only need to eat poison. If you eat all the poisons in the world, sooner or later you will be invulnerable to all poisons under the King realm. However, eating poison is not a Tao after all. It's like eating herbs directly, which is far less effective than using pills. Eating pills directly wastes too much of the power of the medicine. But using pills, you can use 70% to 80% of the essence of the medicine. Therefore, one medicinal dan can be worth hundreds, or even thousands of spiritual herbs. This is the logic behind it. Using poison is also not bad. Han Fei wondered, poison pills? Huang Jie said, any kind of acquired poison can be made into pills. You're interesting. Let me tell you, there are tens of thousands of synthetic poisons in the 10,000 Poison Heaven. If you can pay the price, you can trade for it. As for your path to resist poison, this king can also explain it to you. Even if you fuse with the heaven spirit detoxifying insect, it's just physical. poisons at the soul level are more terrible than poisons at the physical level. If you want to learn from me, you can come to the 10,000 poison heaven with your sincerity after this trip to the secret realm. Han Fei was tempted. He slightly cupped his hands. Thank you, Senior. Huang Jie said, since I promised to give you some poisons, I won't break my promise. Huang Jie waved his hand, and a bottle of colorful, bubbling poisonous water was handed to Han Fei. Huang Jie said, for others this is a great poison. But for you it's a great tonic. This poison is called 1,000 venom. There are 1,000 kinds of poisons. You owe the 10,000 poison heaven a favor. Although Huang Jie said he would give it to Han Fei, he actually accepted the favor. With this favor, if Han Fei attacked the people of the 10,000 poison heaven in the land of Kinggrave, Han Fei's mind would be broken. Huang Jie was a king after all. No matter how eccentric he was still an expert who had lived for tens of thousands of years. He also noticed that Han Fei seemed to be different. When facing him, Han Fei didn't change his expression at all. He was not afraid or worried like an old monk in meditation. This kid was arrogant and extremely conceited. If it were under other circumstances, he might have the intention to kill this kid. However, with the snow girl next to him, he couldn't do that. And Han Fei was arrogant. After receiving benefits from him, it was impossible for him to attack the people of the 10,000 poison heaven. As for other things, Huang Jie thought that as long as Han Fei dared to come to the 10,000 poison heaven, as long as he had the capital to pay, the 10,000 poison heaven could make him go bankrupt with a smile. After bidding farewell to Huang Jie, Han Fei didn't have any contact with the people of the 10,000 poison heaven at all. He directly returned to the snow god. This scene made many people on the ship suspicious. Since when did the ice and snow heavens have some connection with the 10,000 poison heaven? That saint child actually confronted the 10,000 poison ancestor? How could that old man be so easy to talk to? Because Han Fei boarded the ship of the 10,000 poison heaven, many immortal palaces and even kings of the 13 outer heavens were actually a little confused. They could only warn the heavenly talents under their command to pay attention to the ice and snow heavens and the 10,000 poison heaven. After returning to the snow god, Han Fei discovered the snow girl's perception. So, he directly came to the snow girl's cabin. After entering, the snow girl said, "Do you know the way of poison?" Han Fei shook his head slightly. "No, but I need it." The snow girl was slightly stunned. The 10,000 poison heaven is a bit incompatible with the families of the 36 mysterious heavens. It's mainly because the 10,000 poison ancestor, Huang Jie, is too good at using poison. Over the past tens of thousands of years, 3 pioneer sea experts have died in Huang Jie's hands. Even so, although the 10,000 poison heaven is in the outer heavens, even in the inner heavens, few families are willing to provoke the 10,000 poison heaven. If you want it, you have to do it openly like today. Otherwise, the consequences will be really unpredictable. Han Fei was a little surprised. Is it strange that 3 kings died in a battle of the same realm? After all, they are masters of poison, and they walk the path of a minority. This kind of person was supposed to be stronger. Otherwise, they would have been eradicated long ago. Han Fei didn't take it seriously and nodded slightly. Got it. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. After a while, when Han Fei returned to his cabin and entered Forge the Universe, he was no longer in a hurry to cultivate, but took out the bottle of 1,000 venom liquid as soon as possible. Poison. It was normal for it to be in bad condition. As for this kind of thing, it was obvious that it was poisonous. Because everyone knew that it was poisonous, who would actually touch it? Only someone like Han Fei, who could absorb poisons, could take a sip of it openly. Of course, before drinking it, Han Fei still took out the 9-palace ruler of fortune to measure it. When he got a flat hexagram, he breathed a sigh of relief. Han Fei pinched his nose and took a small sip. It's sour and sweet. Why does it taste a bit like yogurt? Of course, Han Fei didn't drink all of it. He just took a sip. However, after this sip, Han Fei found that his skin turned red and green for a while, and his whole body was emitting a hazy aura. Then, Han Fei felt that his head was dizzy, as if he had drunk too much. Han Fei knew that this was a sign of poisoning. Fortunately, this sign of poisoning only lasted about 3 minutes. Then, it slowly disappeared. Han Fei realized that he seemed to have adapted to this poison a little. It was probably not suitable for him to drink any more today. Han Fei would take a sip every few days. This bottle could probably last him 7 or 8 meals. The old tortoise said, "I think you can make a trip to the 10,000 poison sky for the Tao of poison. In this endless sea, if you can be immune to poison, your survival ability will be increased by at least 20%. I just don't know if that old man is good or bad." Han Fei chuckled. "Old Yuan, who cares if he is good or bad? What we are doing is a deal. Since it is a deal, we each take what we need. He gave me a portion of poison now, which is not a sign of friendship. It's just that the place where the king died is near, and he doesn't want to cause trouble. Let's wait and see."